one thing I've been doing, it's been really interesting. I've been going in on doing some streams on Twitch during work to have like music, like soundtracks and whatnot playing. And I'm so surprised that nothing's come down. No punitive measures have come down on me since I've been playing copyrighted music, which is terrible, you know.
There's
But
actually one thing in a video recently that I posted, but I didn't make it official. It's unlisted and it got like 50 views because it was like more of a bonus video. But I used over headphones. I listened to music and you could hear that. And I was pretty curious, and I already said in the subtitles, I said, I'm pretty sure gonna get copyright strike for that. And I mean, the video wasn't even live, it was just unlisted, it was just sitting there, but it didn't even take, like, after the processing, immediately it said no, copyright strike.
oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry, go ahead.
Huh? Yeah, but
No, you go ahead.
It wasn't really planned to go live anyways, that part of the video, so it was fine. I made a new one anyways, but I kind of expected it. But it really, I was curious if it would notice the track as the original song, and it noticed the name and everything else, even though it was played through headphones, but it was audible enough.
Yeah, and like with Twitch, they handle it so differently. Where for them, it's just they'll mute those sections of your video after it's been live.
No, yeah. I had that option. I got 3 options. I could cut it out the part, mute that part, or do something else with it. So I had an option. So yeah, but if I would have left that out, the whole part after, it wouldn't have made sense. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy though. Yeah.
Actually,
by the way,
since I'm seeing the username, how do you pronounce it? Is it Quebec or is it Quebec? Because I hear both pronunciations. Which is it? Is it just like tomato, or is there a proper one?
I would answer, but I know I say it wrong. Either way, I say it. So
because for a while I heard everywhere Quebec, and then I saw a kind of news post and the news anchor said Quebec. So what is it? In French or English? If there is a difference even there, then yeah.
Well,
what do people from Quebec say? I don't know.
I'm betting you it's Quebec.
I mean, I would say Quebec, yeah, because Quebec doesn't sound French at all.
Well, I didn't realize that there would be a difference in how you pronounce it, whether you're saying it in English or not. You know, kind of like I would expect Versailles would be said the same between French and English. But of course, here in Missouri, there's a town called Versailles. Ugh.
Yeah, Quebec is French. Yeah, that's what would have made more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, some interesting thing. By the way, I believe, this is right here. I'm just going on to our Discord here, but he ended up fixing.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
But Quebec sounds so wrong.
I know, right?
Yeah, Quebec.
I will say Steve here, he ended up replacing the back on his LG G7 like himself, which is pretty awesome. He like his back glass is all shattered, and then he replaced it with I think it was a blue back glass on it, and it looks pretty dang good. So yeah, more props to him.
I don't even know how the LG G7 looked like.
I can't even
remember. I mean, they kind of look all the same, but the Velvet actually looks a little bit different now. The LG Velvet.
Yeah. Well, I haven't even the Velvet. That's one thing I haven't even really looked at the Velvet.
I didn't. I just saw it released or being released or something like that.
Well, and as far as I could tell, the Velvet was lacking some stuff for the price that they were selling.
For the price, okay. Yeah, because it's not a flagship phone anyways. But I don't know, something that's actually weird is that the Pixel 4a, the 4a is actually taking us so long. I mean, maybe because of the whole virus thing, but I think that's wasn't the free released like in March or something like that last year. So it's
I mean, from what I've read, it's like basically they're waiting for COVID to kind of cool off a little, because from what I understand, it's ready to launch. It's just now. Mm-hmm. So because I mean, and I think it depends on what the price they're selling the phone at too. If they're going to sell the phone at $300, Oh, if they did,
I don't
that would
think
be
so.
killer if they did. But we'll see. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know.
But I'm actually also curious about the news that we got up from OnePlus that they are going to make cheap phones again. But what does cheap mean? Is it a cheap phone, which is bad, or will it be just good in terms of price,
Right? Will
value?
it be cheap or inexpensive?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with, I'd like to see OnePlus go back to. Hey, Matt. We
Hi,
got Matt
Matt.
Tyler in the house here too. I'd like to see OnePlus to make a version that's, I mean, going back to the non curved screen, because like I just watched a review of that Moto flagship, and it's got that curved screen,
Mhm.
and I just can't like my next phone will definitely not have a curved screen if I can help it.
I mean, for some reason, I don't mind it with the 7. It's fine because
Mhm.
actually, with the case, it makes sense for me with the swipes. But yeah, I get it. I don't know. I haven't used the flat one for a while. I mean,
Yeah,
on longer
there's
term.
yeah, it's I mean, it's like it's been a while since the last, well, I guess technically if I don't count my Xperia XE1 compact, my last like main phone that I used that was a flat screen was the P20 Pro, and that was nice. But yeah, there's and Vascos is saying, yeah, the flat screen is cheaper, and it's in, and that's one thing too, is I'm really curious, and I've not really seen any good data on how much more expensive a curved screen versus a flat screen is for the same resolution and the same panel, basically. And I don't know, but that's something I'd really like to know, though.
Mhm.
There's one thing I was talking a little bit about earlier, and I wanted to kind of bring some people in on some topics. Was so I've been reading this book called Samsung Rising, which is here. I've got it pulled up here.
But
Let me share.
isn't that a little bit of a boring book to read about the company? I don't know. Never read
You would
such a book because it
you would
sounds
think
boring.
and some of it is can be a little bit dry,
Is there
but
some drama, some love story?
well, no, well, it's kind of like the history of it, but it's really interesting because, like the first chapter starts out with the Note 7 debacle and how like people are trying to find out what's going on, and Samsung's mixed reactions, and basically they tried to hide it for a while, try to delay the person, and a lot of it was like because of trying to save face. And apparently a big thing with a lot of these Korean companies is saving face is huge. Like
Yeah, that's
uh
generally an Asian thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but it's so interesting.
How
They
big is the book? How many pages?
Oh, how many pages? That's a good question. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
rough.
Because I'll be honest, I'm not reading it, I'm listening to it.
Ah, you
So
are okay. You have the audiobook.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I'm a dirty bastard
Okay,
listening to the
makes sense.
books
No,
instead.
I don't actually think there's something wrong with that. I mean,
Like it's like
I
6, 7 hours, I think, at least what I'm
because
listening to.
I thought about doing the same, reading a few books.
Yeah, well, this one's interesting. So like they start out with that, then they go in, and it turns out Samsung kind of was a product of Japan after during World War II, coming into Korea. And of course, they did horrible things in Korea to the actual people there, because they basically treated them as slave labor. But there was somebody who came in, and he started, basically because of the situation there. He started up Samsung, and I forgot, it was like fertilizer, I think they started out with, but then they eventually got into like semiconductor business. But
Mm.
it's crazy because their leadership, it's almost like the way that the author describes it. And so just so everyone knows, I'm about halfway through the book, so I'm not all the way through yet. And they talk about how the culture behind Samsung, like there's the cult, almost like a cult of personality with their ruling family, where like it's kind of like it mirrors North Korea in a lot of ways. Like they would have these rallies for their employees, and they would be doing all these intricate, like public, almost like public parade displays of like synchronization, just like they would do in North Korea. It's crazy. Like when people would go and. By the way, Matt, thank you so much for subbing. You are awesome. There's one thing that they did like several times some of the higher ups have been charged with crimes like bribery and whatnot, and it turns out like there were employees in Samsung who were just tripping over themselves trying to go to prison for this guy, for this family.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Like that's nuts to me, and it's crazy, and a bribery was like an implicit thing because like during all this, because it's like the like tribute and paying tribute and respect, and so like when Samsung was starting to try and get into the carrier business, they initially were going to try and do some bribing stuff there, and one of the Western higher ups at Samsung was like, "Don't do this. This is horrifically embarrassing for us." Do not do this. So it's crazy. That apparently also and I know some of the people in the chat have watched this probably, but did you watch the Michael Fisher's video about that Samsung Matrix phone?
No.
Oh, it's like the Matrix Reloaded. At the first Matrix they had that spring loaded phone, that Nokia 8110, but the next one was a Samsung phone that was like went up to the top, and it was
right,
yeah. And so it turns out that was a huge cause of turmoil in the company, because Samsung didn't want to, in their view, the Korean higher ups didn't want to soil their brand by cross promoting with a movie.
Okay.
But one thing that's really interesting about it is they ended up, so Samsung was, the Korean leadership of Samsung were extremely resistant to pushing marketing like that, like they're doing now, like $1 billion marketing.
So they never did that before?
No, they were like, our product should speak for itself.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware, because these days anyone already has done it. I mean, it's more obvious than ever. Yeah. And you see
and it's so interesting because they were so resistant, and then whenever like after at the end of that year of that $1 billion advertising campaign, which they also paired with the carriers, it like their brand exploded, and that makes me think, well, so LG is a similar company, but they're kind of the black sheep. And I wonder if we never see advertising, and I wonder if they follow the same philosophy of like, well, our product should just stand out and for themselves. And so they don't talk them up. And I wonder if that's part of the problem with LG, is they rely too much on their outside, because you get almost no advertising from the Korean group. All the advertising comes from outside of Korea.
Yeah, but just like you're saying, the product speaks for itself. But if no one knows the product, no one can speak for the product.
Exactly. And that's something that Samsung struggled with for a while, because like, what was it, back in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 90s, Samsung was viewed as like a copycat manufacturer and didn't really and not as like a lead manufacturer. Like they were in the shadow of Sony and all these other groups. And it's crazy thinking about it, because now just Samsung is just a powerhouse, even whether or not you like Samsung products or not. It's just fascinating seeing that journey. And so now I'm at the point of the book now where they're starting to get into smartphones, just pre-Android. And so it's going to be, I'm interested to see the transition as they're going in, because one thing what was it, on Sprint in the US, there was the first big Samsung phone that was in the US was a flip phone. But except what they did was, instead of having, I don't have my flip phone on me, but instead of having like the half part, it's like a little thin plastic part that's over the top that flips up, and it looked weird. It did horrible in every other market except for the United States, because apparently in the United States they wanted that weird, unique look on that form factor, but it bombed everywhere else, to the point where 2 weeks before the thing was, or was it 2 weeks? It was 2 weeks or 2 months. Either way, before it's,
why did it?
Sorry, go ahead.
Why did it bomb anywhere else?
One thing I'm thinking, that competition, I think, was a little, because I think
makes sense.
And in the US, US has always been kind of an insular market, and it's so like Samsung, out of pride, was going to stop their manufacturer, not deliver all these phones to Sprint, even like I think it was like 2 months before they were supposed to launch this thing. and they were like that would have destroyed their the relationship that Samsung had been fostering with Sprint, because that was like the first big carrier that they had been fostering with, and they were like, no, do not under any circumstances stop manufacturing this phone, because they had a whole bunch of market research that said that this phone would do really well, and so it did, and the US is pretty much the only market that phone did well in, and it was like the mainstay for Sprint for 2 full years. In a time frame where phones were generally like a year, like they would be sold by a carrier. So it's a fascinating book. It's called Samsung Rising by Jeffrey Kane. I definitely recommend it. It can get a little dry, but it's more interesting than you'd think.
It's actually funny since Quebecer says in Korea, LG does a lot of cross promotion with behind the scenes and probably other Korean boy bands. There was a special behind the scenes edition of LG Q7. Actually, until like maybe a year or two, I didn't even know how big K-pop is. I mean, those K-pop bands, they are huge in Asia. I never knew. I mean, there's like videos with 1 billion views or so.
I think a lot of people who are watching this, who have seen some of my music streams, probably wouldn't blame me for not realizing that K-pop's a big thing either, since a lot of what I listen to is like film scores. Listen to movie soundtracks. Oh man, but yeah, that's one thing. It's just like the most fascinating thing for me with this book isn't necessarily Samsung itself. It's the black sheep of LG, and how like they have like seeing that there's probably most definitely some cultural influences that are very much the same, but they've gone a way different direction. And so it's interesting trying to read between the lines, especially since they live in the shadow of Samsung within their own country. Because a lot of Koreans view Samsung as a matter of national pride. So if Samsung fails, their country fails.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's by far the biggest company in company in the country.
Oh yeah. Well, and like Absolutely. There's a whole thing about it was called the Republic of Samsung.
Mm.
And like it went to the point where there were some whistleblowers who like blew whistle on basically bribery that was happening, and their justice system's really kind of messed up in Korea. But like they essentially ended up having to you can do 2 appeals. And so the first, like Samsung or the government went down on the whistleblower, saying that he broke laws. And that Samsung was the victim, even though what he brought forward was an audio recording of Samsung officials, the top Samsung officials, CEOs, talking about who they're going to bribe, which included prosecutors. And then he appealed it, and they came back and were like, no, he did not break any laws. Samsung did, and if you didn't see that, then you're a fool. And then it came back around, they appealed again, and then went back on it. They reversed it again, and they basically ostracized this guy who was a whistleblower, and he can't even get a job. He had to start a bakery.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, it's some intense mafia style shit. Like, so I'm interested to see how this culture developed during the Android days. So it's really interesting. And man, it makes me want to learn more, because they also talked a little bit about Sony and how like there were some cultural issues there. Yeah, and how like so for a long time, Sony and Samsung had a partnership for building displays, and then Samsung came forward, and one of the Western executives came forward and saying that they want to beat Sony, and that was very awkward because they were a customer of theirs, and so they had to go forward. And like when Sony brought in their first non-Japanese CEO, there was a huge culture clash and resentment, along with just resistance. And that's the same thing happens in Samsung all the time. And except that this was like somebody who was like a Korean American that they were doing this with. So it's really interesting just to see. So yeah, it's Oh yeah.
What's actually also funny, Quebecro says, I didn't know BTS means behind the scenes. He's way out of the loop. And then he checked on Wikipedia, it's beyond the scenes. I mean, I always knew it as behind the scenes, but the question is, what did he think when he wrote it beforehand? Because he wrote BTS. So what did he think it meant if he didn't know it was behind the scenes? But I mean, also behind the scenes, beyond the scenes. Oh,
Borrowing
beyond the scene. Beyond the scene. Okay, that's actually a difference. But I
beyond
know
the scene or scope. Or yeah.
I mean, I get, but it's kind of similar enough that you get what it's meant either way, with behind the scenes or beyond the scene. Yeah, makes sense.
Oh yeah, and I like Matt Tyler's. So Samsung Knights are actually the hit squad for Samsung's Mafia division. Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy though. So it's like that's one reason why I'm kind of glad I'm not a huge Samsung user, but I also just go against the grain anyway. I
What
don't
do you
want
mean
to
actually with not a big Samsung user? Do you use anything Samsung?
My monitors, my 2 monitors are Samsung monitors.
Okay.
I do have.
I don't think I own anything Samsung. I don't.
Oh really? Yeah.
I mean, I did a couple of. I had the Samsung S7. I have Samsung SD cards, and one of them actually pissed me off because what I got is I got this, which is similar to the DJI Osmo Pocket, but that's the one from Xiaomi here, and I got it, and it didn't come with an SD card, and I took my good micro SD card from Samsung, the fast one. I recorded videos, and what I've noticed, and it sounded to me like when I was recording that whenever the motor or the gimbal moved, like it was kind of, you heard that on the microphone.
Oh,
and I complained about the company where I got it from. They said we didn't know anything of that. Could you maybe send in a sound sample so we can check it? And I didn't do that, but I took this SD card, and now I have the Insta360 1R, and I took the same SD card, recorded the video, and had the same issue there. And I thought, well, there's no gimbal moving, so might it be actually just the SD card that causes an audio issue where you hear every 1 or 2 seconds you hear bzzz, 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 and I thought that was the motor moving. So I took a different SD card, and now it's fine. So I blamed it on this device because I would have never expected that an SD card can, even though the video is correct, but the sound got corrupted in a bad way. So
that's crazy.
I never expected that.
That's nuts. There's man, it's like the Samsung Samsung products I use also are, I have the Samsung Gear S3, and then I have that we do have like the Fit 2 Pro.
Oh no, I actually pretty much all of my storage is Samsung. I have at least 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe SD cards.
Yeah,
no, SD cards. I mean SSDs. Most of
yeah. My SSDs right now. Actually, yeah, I do have a Samsung 970 Evo SSD for my main install, which is a 500 gig one. And I think that's my main one. I don't have any Samsung RAM or anything.
That's actually weird. The big mainstream stuff I don't have, but the just crucial stuff. I mean, storage they do well.
Mm-hmm. They've always and that was another thing too in the book was Samsung storage was
that actually make like those SD card chips or RAM chips. They're actually I think the only 3 companies actually do them. Anyone else buys off of those.
Right. Well, and so one thing that they talked about was in the book was during Steve Jobs. I don't know if it was Steve Jobs approached or if they approached Steve Jobs. He was concerned about the iPods, that the ones that had the physical spinning disc in them, and because they're susceptible to shock and they just weren't as reliable. And so then. Yeah, I did too. And they ended up going for the Touch, or maybe I don't know what it is now. Either way, they ended up going with Samsung for the manufacturing of these of the storage for it. The exclusive supplier they were. Another thing too that was interesting was talking about building the processor for the iPhone. Samsung built that processor for the first iPhone, and they didn't. Apple didn't tell Samsung what product that processor was going to be going into.
Okay.
And Samsung turned it around in like 5 months, which is unheard of in terms of developing the silicon for that. Like it was like they said that they wouldn't have been able to launch the iPhone on time if Samsung hadn't been so aggressive about their timetables with getting this processor out the door. So it like Samsung's manufacturing is on point, and if they want to focus on it, they'll do it, and they can do it well. It's just they're so big now that they can't keep, I don't know if they can keep that same level
quality control is that's the big part, because that's where you can save up quite a lot of money, and that's where they usually sacrifice, because that is the part and where everything goes flawless, you don't notice it, so there you can skimp on. But if it goes wrong, then you're fucked.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting too, because they talked a little bit about like the war between the engineers and the designers. And like the engineers we were in control a lot of the times during. Well, I'm interested to see, because I'm not in this part of the book yet, but I'm interested to see if the engineers were more in control during the early years of Samsung and Android, and then the designers took over after the S6.
Makes sense, because generally I think if a lot more of those engineers would have a say in the devices would look quite a bit different than they do now, because they don't look like just making it as thin as possible, as light as possible. They just want to get the job done.
Well, and like the S5, the Galaxy S5 was the perfect example of that. You know, where they made the thing the fuggliest phone on the planet. They with the cheapest looking and feeling materials they could have possibly done. It was the one that like where the tan version looks like a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they had the USB 3 plug at the bottom.
The wide one.
Yeah, like no one wanted that.
I think that was the worst, or the biggest screw up in terms of those USB standards, because only a couple of like those SSD or like external storage drives had that. I have one myself. That didn't really work out well. That no one really wanted to use it, because the connector was very bad. It had a lot of connection issues. It wasn't reliable at all.
Right. Well, and like, so you could still charge it with a regular micro USB cable, but like it was a pain in the ass because of the socket, and the socket sucked.
Yeah, the socket was terrible.
Yeah, so one thing I'm really interested to get in on the book is to hear about the war of features in their software versus when they pared it down, and now they're kind of paring back up again. But I'm interested to see where they get with that and see the internal workings and dilemmas that people faced inside there. So
actually pretty funny. I have not even used the newest UI of theirs.
Oh yeah, neither have I.
Because I never tried the S20.
Well, and Vasco says this, the S6 was a downgrade in so many things, and that's where design goes over engineering too far, because they removed the SD card slot and they made the battery tiny, and they have the first generation curved screen which had those touch issues. So
what wasn't the S6 the first one with a Quad HD display, or was that already on the S5?
That was on the S5.
Oh, was it already? Okay.
Wait, no. I'm a liar. I'm a dirty liar because
I think like the 6 was the first. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because the LG G4 was the only one to have in that generation, which was its competitor was the S5, and the G4 was renowned because it had the Quad HD display. But the processor couldn't really handle Quad HD as well.
Mm-hmm.
The 801. So yeah. Okay. There's it's interesting, and because like the first thing that we saw in terms of design that was like the new direction was the Galaxy Alpha, that tiny phone, the tiny Android phone, and that was like the Note 4 design on there. But it's interesting. I'm interested to see like all of the removable battery also is another thing that they removed as well with the S6. Here we go. Yeah, and Matt, I definitely agree. I don't feel like glass should be used unless you have wireless charging. But even then, I'm okay with plastic or other things, just depending. I just want a metal frame.
I was actually hoping, like for the last maybe like 2 years already, that kind of plastic leather or maybe wood or something like that would get a comeback, but no chance. I mean, glass is so dominant these days. No way they're getting off that. I don't get it. I would wish give me a really thick rubber phone. I mean, it would be fine.
Mm-hmm. Or how about you do this? make a version of X phone that's like $1,000. Then make a version of it that's exactly the same at every single point, except the back is plastic, and maybe make it $50 less. But they probably wouldn't do that.
This is actually funny. I replied to them, but I never got an answer. But there was like an ad on Instagram from a German company, I think, and it was about the lightest phone on the world, like completely out of carbon. But when I checked the specs, they didn't say how big the screen was. They didn't say how big the battery was, what kind of camera, what display resolution, nothing, not the processor, nothing. So everything that they stated was it's super lightweight, even though they didn't even say the weight. And I think they just 2 spec points you got. And I wrote them that that's such a bullshit scheme. I mean, then they wanted people to pre-order that phone, but you had no idea on what you would get you into. Because I mean, yeah, lightest phone is nice if it's out of carbon, but if it's a dud in terms of performance or battery life or the camera is, and especially if it's a company that makes their first phone, the software or the optimization, all of that will be shit.
Well, and that tells me right there that the company that designed that doesn't have the priority straight.
How can you market the phone based on one big thing?
Well, you could do it in certain ways,
and people don't care
like the Jelly phone or the Palm phone.
But tiny, I mean, especially if it's just weight. Weight isn't a big concern for that many people.
Right. Yeah, and was it? Oh yeah.
I mean, which phone was that? I saw a phone recently. It had like a 6.5-inch display or something like that, and 3,000 milliamp hour battery. That's tiny by those standards by these days.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, that's part of what gave me pause with last year's Xperia 1 was the fact that they had a tiny battery in that thing.
Yeah, and it had terrible battery life.
Right, and at least with the Mark II right now, they've increased that, and they've done a couple other things. I know that the Mark II doesn't really tickle your fancy that much in terms of like form factor and everything.
But I think it also shows once again how much behind the curve Sony is. Everyone's going 90, 100, 120 hertz or anything, and they go 4K 60. I mean, I think people are more into the high refresh rate than 4K. And I'm sure there are a few people who will say that they watch Netflix movies all the time, so 4K is necessary, even though no one would notice the difference between 440p and 4K. And the battery life will be impacted a lot and performance will be worse. But yeah, I'd rather take Quad HD.
Well, and so one thing also they were talking about Sony in this book was the people got very towards the end of the 90s and early 2000s, they were very complacent and thought that what their technology they had worked, and they were resistant to continuing forward with it and driving new technology and trying new things. And that was a big, hence why Sony Walkmans disappeared after the iPhone came, and the iPod came around. So it's interesting seeing that and how it kind of still is playing out a little bit today.
Yeah, but there's also a difference because Matt Tyler, for example, says that Apple lasts longer than the iPhone 8, it then grabs it faster than everything. They never give us specs or numbers. Yeah, but there's a difference. They don't give us specs, but the phone is well-rounded. It has all those things. They just don't give you numbers, but it has a great camera. It has good battery life. It has a good display. They don't tell you the resolution. They don't tell you the battery size, but the stuff inside is good. But on the other phone, I mean, if especially an Android company doesn't tell you all those specs, it means they are trying to hide them because they're definitely not good for marketing.
I agree, though. I will say I think the battery aspect, longevity thing is something that Apple should do better on in terms of divulging, because I will say, I do agree that when they say it lasts longer than the iPhone 8, that's not necessarily the case. It depends on the person's usage. So, but then that's something that's so subjective that I feel like they should be a little more here's the capacity, boom, done. And,
but I think
for that particular aspect of it,
I think the most laughable marketing term is what Apple always does is say it's our best iPhone to date. And I would think, what else? Who would ever say, yeah, this phone is worse than the previous one? I mean, that's something that's obvious. You don't have to tell me it's better. I mean,
Well,
that's the same
well,
as someone gives you $5 and someone gives you $10 and tells you, hey, $10 are more than the $5. I mean, obviously it's more.
well, it's a full, like, they could get 10 seconds of their presentation out of it by saying literally nothing, but saying something that sounds good.
Yeah, but they so often say this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. I would expect all those things to be the best with the newest phone.
Yeah, you should if it's worse. According to what Matt said.
I mean,
yeah.
this is better. This is better. Okay, this is worse. This is worse. I mean, it's
yeah.
You know,
do you want to buy the shitty phone? Well, this one's yours. You're right up your alley. Yeah. The and Vasquez was saying that the biggest problem with the Sony Mark II is the price. I will say
available in the US actually.
You can pre-order it. But the thing about it is, if you pre-order it, you do get those $300 Sony headphones with it, which it doesn't bring the price down, but it gives you more money for the price that you're paying. But like if I ended up getting this phone, it would probably be, once it goes down, like to $700.
I think that's actually a pretty weird trend. I think Sony pretty much started it, because today someone also asked me about the B&O, I don't know which headphones, because he will get it if he buys, I don't know, this and this phone. And I mean, Sony started with, for example, their 1000XM that you get along with it. But instead of just giving me the phone cheaper, what it's actually worth, they are giving me a headphone that costs maybe $300, but it's worth, at least for them, not even $100. So they still make a lot of money with that, and they rather give you another thing as well, just so they can get the full price on the phone. And I see a lot of other brands doing this now, giving you Samsung the buds along. Another brand gives you this along, and I don't know. Just give me the phone cheaper. I don't care about. I mean, I already have good headphones. I don't need that. I have already that. I don't need that. Give me just the phone cheaper.
Yeah, it looks like right now the on B&H right now it is here. I'm gonna share the screen again. On B&H right now, it looks like instead of getting the over-the-ear ones, you're getting
$1,200.
Yeah,
that's
but
pre-taxes, damn.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap. That's something that just drives me crazy, because this is the type of phone that I would like. I like. It's kind of the anti-2020 phone. You know, no curved screens, no. There's no curved screen. There's a headphone jack.
Is it
I like
flat?
that. It is is for the most part a flat screen.
But the previous one wasn't, so they changed that as well.
Here, let me make sure. And then,
because I'm pretty sure the one had a pretty hefty curve. If I don't get that wrong.
There's
I would really like to know how much more expensive the 865 made a lot of phones, because now with even the OnePlus being so expensive, I mean, I would have rather had the option, give me the 865 without 5G, if that would have been an option, and give it me with it, because and I could save like $1 or maybe $2, I don't know how much dollars, because I mean, I don't care about 5G at all, not for the next 5 years.
Yeah, there's I mean, that's something I'd be curious to see too. And Matt does make a good point about, the hardware and the 4K panel, and it does kind of add up, but I will say I don't think there are any 4K panels that do support.
Yeah, but I don't think
90% or 120.
No, they are not, but I'm pretty sure they didn't design it. I'm pretty sure that was just bought in, because it's an OLED and they don't make their own OLED panels.
Well,
I'm pretty sure it's an LG or GDI or something like that. They make such panels, but
because when did Sony stop making their own panels? I guess
I think they stopped with the XC2, because the XC2 was the last that I know of that had an IPS, which was pretty much the best IPS panel ever. And since then, nothing better came out. So I think that's pretty much the best IPS that you can get on the XZ2. And since then, at least the high-end ones had OLEDs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, because I don't think they went. Yeah, because the XZ1 that I had were still LCDs. So I'm trying to see. Let's see. Oh yeah, so Q3 Becker was saying that if Google settles and goes with the 765G and the A65, it has to be super expensive, which I definitely think that's going to be the case. The one thing that I'm curious to see is because we've been, at least in the US, we've been wanting them to. I think enthusiasts have been wanting them to make 700
Yeah,
series phones
but
for a while.
what I think is Google is going the iPhone route even more so, because they will put in a 765, and they know the casual user doesn't care about the SoC, but they will not make it a lot cheaper. So they are able to bump up the price or keep the price, but just make more revenue. Because the typical user, he sees, the great camera and all those kind of things. If you tell him 865, 765, it doesn't make a difference to him. That's something that the geeks will notice. And that's,
Mhm.
I mean, I saw so many people saying that, especially Google with the Nexus, the Pixel line is going more and more towards what Apple does. And now I'm pretty sure they are going even further to that. I mean, they can't not state the specs, but I think if they could pull that off on an Android market, they would even do that.
Well, because like because to a certain point, right now, I think a lot of Android reporting still relies a little bit on specs, because I mean, one thing that the Pixel 4 just got annihilated for was not having like the ultra wide, choosing the ultra wide over, no, I mean, choosing the telephoto, 2x telephoto over the ultra wide, and yada yada, and some of these other specs that were like, it didn't help that they had like that radar chip that did nothing.
But see, that's the weird thing. On Android, specs are everything, and they sell. On the reviewer side, on the kind of marketing side, maybe. But I don't know anyone at my workplace who has a phone, whatever else, who would even know what chip it's running, because they don't care. And I think if, for example, if Apple, they don't state specs, and if now, for example, an Android manufacturer would make an iPhone, like an Apple phone, if that would be possible, they could just not state specs, because it doesn't mean anything. If you say it's an 865, you have no idea what that means on an iPhone. Or if an Apple, for example, now would state all those specs, it wouldn't matter, because it doesn't have a correlation due to the processor. Because today in my comments, someone said they were talking about the Samsung tablet and an Apple tablet, and then they said, yeah, but this Apple tablet has only 2 gigabytes of RAM, and the other one had 4. And I thought, but it doesn't matter. 2 gigs of RAM on an Apple tablet is not the same as on an Android tablet.
Right. Yeah. There's agreed. There, and it's just about how people, perceive it. Like,
I don't think, that's actually not what I think, because Quebec says that customers care about bar graphs. I don't think so. They usually don't even know what's inside. The typical user, people like you, me, we know that. But in a store, when I see people getting kind of recommendations from the seller, they say, yeah, I want a nice display, a big one, or I want the great camera. But I never hear them mentioning any sort of numbers. I never heard someone say, oh, how big's the battery? They say the battery is good or something. They never say, oh, it's 3,000 or 4,000, because a typical user would say 4,000. What is that? What did my previous phone have? I have no idea what it compares to. I don't think that the typical customer, the big portion of the people, I think like 80% of all the customers has an idea what's in their phone.
Right. Well, and one example here that, oh, you're fine, Q3 Becker. No, there's he was being sarcastic. But what was it with Matt Tyler makes a good point too about, says the Snapdragon is the 845 faster than the 765, and from what I can see, yes. But like, why don't if you go for a cheaper phone, they use older chipsets? Well, for a couple of reasons. Qualcomm supporting them, like with drivers, they don't want to support them for very long, and 2, you do get some upgrades. Like, for example, like you might get an upgrade on the Adreno like GPU on some of those higher end newer mid-range processors versus some of the older flagship ones. So it just depends, but I mean, and it also just depends on how many are made of one chipset and how many are available after those flagship phones that got them all in, how many are left in the just available to suppliers too.
Question. How the hell did he get an Juan Bagnell emoji?
I know, right? That's awesome. Okay, so that's one thing.
How does it work?
So I'm not sure. I think you might be able to let us know a little bit more, because I'm still figuring out the whole emoji thing.
I mean, the moment I saw it, I thought, "What? How the hell?"
It's awesome. Oh,
I've
it's
never
glorious.
seen that.
Yeah, like we could do it in Juan's. It shows up in mine. I guess it's because we're subscribed.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but how did he make an icon of himself or an emoji? Did he
Oh yeah,
create
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I think
Really?
he did, but yeah, if you subscribe to someone on Twitch, you can use their emojis.
I did not know you can make your own emojis, but wow, that's brutal. That's brutal.
What the hell is with this one, Matt?
Oh, he has his own. You don't have your. You don't have one.
I don't have any, but I guess I need to make some now.
You're such a noob. Such a noob.
Thank you so much, Q3 Becker, for explaining that because I did not realize that.
Yeah, that's Tim Schofield, right? I wouldn't have even noticed.
Oh yeah. Oh man, there's some good stuff on there.
So once you have your own emoji, you've made it.
Oh, I know. I just have to be like, or something weird, you know. Oh man, there's here. Let me pull up. Yeah. So yeah, it's just like when it comes to a lot of the stuff, I'm. It's more interesting to see behind the scenes stuff. I just want to. It just feels like Snapdragon has a stranglehold on the mobile market in the West. So
I think you mean beyond the scene.
yes, indeed. Oh man, there's oh yeah, I have a new thing. We were talking a little bit about this earlier, but I have a new little bit to the my dad's phone upgrade saga. So he had a Moto Z Force first gen that he got used that had a screen that had ghosting issues and everything, you know, with it, and he eventually got a green line down the middle of the screen. So I finally got him to upgrade. I got him he got a Moto Z4 because he has a bunch of Moto mods, you know, and I got him I forgot what the brand was. I don't think it's 2D, but it was a third party like Moto mod battery thing, and like he showed it to me last time I visited, and it was warped, and like the stuff was peeled up on the edges, and I'm like, okay, Dad, you need to stop using that now because that's pretty dangerous for a lithium ion battery. Like, who knows if that thing's going to get punctured at some point and catch fire in your pocket. So he's like, okay, you know, and he went to order some stuff along with his new phone. And yeah, right. Right. I'm going to be, yes, I will admit my story does pale in comparison to the story of the G8X with you guys on there. But I will say, so my dad ordered a battery. Turns out it was like a battery that just like clamps to the back and sticks into the USB-C port. Doesn't even use the Moto mod part on it. I was like, why would you buy that? Because it costs as much as the Moto mod, like the turbo power Moto mod, like $100. I was like, yeah, why? Why in God's name would you buy something that's not a Moto mod for the phone you got because it has Moto mods? So I went for Father's Day. I ordered that for him. I'm like, Dad, you're just going to have to not use the other one unless you need to. And then it turns out my dad's email, he uses an email that's so old that like it's a pain in the ass to set up. And so he's like, well, I'll just use my old phone and have this new one as a backup. I'm like, no, it's the other way around. You use the new phone and then have your old phone as the backup. There's a reason why you spent $400 in this new phone. So
what though happened with the G8X?
Yeah. You should bring back up the story about the G8X because I think I believe it had to do with the shipping, where something happened in shipping with this, but I don't think I can tell the story as well as Matt could tell us because I don't know the fine details off the top of my head. Oh yeah, and Q3 Becker, you're right.
Not a big player in the ARM SoC world. I don't think NVIDIA is going that route because NVIDIA is all about speed. I don't think they are doing efficient because not even their newest graphics cards are nearly as efficient as they were in the past. So they're all about maximum power.
Well, and they stopped making their Tegra
and maximum price. Yeah, but they only make the Tegra for the cars these days, which also don't really rely on efficiency, and for their NVIDIA Shield. Anything else, but making something very efficient, I don't think anyone's going. I mean, AMD is trying that for laptops, and it actually seems to work out quite well, which I did not expect at all. But the new ones seem to be very efficient even for laptops. I thought that's a market that Intel will keep for a long, long time. but things changed.
Oh.
Yeah, and Nvidia Switch, yeah, obviously.
Or the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Here's a story. So Sam on April 15th sent him the G8X to use on a round trip of the USA and UK back. Back to UK, there was 136 pounds of customs charges. And he still hasn't gotten it yet. So holy shit. Yeah, they sent this to you a month and a half ago, and you still haven't gotten it yet. That's crazy. That's nuts. Man, I don't know.
Why did it went a round trip?
Because basically he's got to send it, and then he was going to send it back because Sam was letting Matt borrow it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what they've been doing a little bit. Like there's been some phone swapping going around, so people can get a chance to look at some. Because
it's pretty pricey to get it, just even if you just lend it to someone. That's bad.
Yeah, that is nuts.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, that's 136 pounds. That's like
that's like $150 for the US.
I think that's like $180, even if not
something like that. Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Oh man,
just to borrow something to someone. I mean, it's why do they keep making money off of something that doesn't stay in the country? I mean, you should be able to tell, hey, this is going back, or okay, but it looks like he will get the money back, right, or not? I mean, if you get it, you pay the 136, but if you give it back, but I don't know if it works like that. I mean, it would be even worse if he sends it to him, has to pay, and when he sends it back, he has to pay again. That would be even worse,
right? Oh, I know.
Because the device would stay in the country it was bought in, but just because it switched once, oh man, customs and taxes and all that, that's such a complicated mess.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. There's I can't even.
That's the same thing like with this cam. They told me that they can't ship it through the way that you usually don't have to pay customs because due to the corona and so on, everything was closed. And I tell them, yeah, send it over through DHL. I'll pay the taxes because I checked. I used the kind of customs calculator, and it told me it would cost me like $20. And then I got the receipt of about 60. And I thought, wait, every calculator was saying 20. And my brother said, yeah, 20 is customs, but you didn't take the shipping fees, which take more up than the customs. So then it was way more expensive.
And here's what he's saying more about it. Like the parcel wasn't supposed to be eligible for customs charge, but the U.S. Postal Service messed it up, which I definitely agree. That U.S. Postal Service
and he should get it terrible. Back. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah. This conversation. Yeah. That's right. You'll get it by 2022, and by then they'll, maybe the population will be less just because of the pandemic.
Yeah, but at least
that's terrible to say.
But since it's an LG, he at least won't miss out on any updates because LGs don't get any.
Right? Yeah, exactly. There's what? So
do they still have the same terrible track record? That they don't
they've gotten a little bit better. Like the G7 got Android 10 finally, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like several generations back. So
yeah,
they seem to be doing a little bit better.
Got that as well.
Right? Yeah. I think like they need to be a little better about the update situation with that. But I think more than that, they just need to advertise. I think that's LG's biggest problem. Is just they don't control, they don't even bother to try and control the narrative around their devices. I mean, good God, there was that one advertisement in Poland where they were showing off how good the phone's camera was by taking upskirt shots in their commercials. Like, what the hell are they thinking? What in God's name are people thinking? Russia. If that got past multiple people,
that's typical Russia.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's crazy. But yeah. So
have you heard the story? But it was fake. But I actually, since it was Russia, I believed it for a moment. When the whole pandemic was starting and they wanted people to stay in their homes, Putin like was supposedly released like 500 lions around the city so people stay inside, and I thought no way, but I thought man, but on the other hand it's Russia, it might be possible, and it was a hoax.
Right.
But I mean the fact that it's Russia, you think maybe
Yeah, you're like okay. They're like no, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
I've
God. Yeah.
heard weirder stuff that happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Was it Matt saying like so Juan swapped the so Juan sent him the V50 and then he sent Juan the ROG Phone 2 and he didn't have any of those charges. And it was like next day deliveries with FedEx.
I'm actually super happy that a couple of weeks we got confirmed that there will be an Asus Zenfone 7 and an ROG 3, because I'm actually really looking forward to those, because the previous ones were already so good. So I'm happy to see that they are coming. I just hope they will be good.
Oh yeah, me too. There's one interesting thing. This isn't on our list, but I saw this, and I'm depending on the price. If this thing is going to be okay, no, it's going to be $140. I probably won't buy it then. But this thing seems crazy, hilariously interesting. The a 4G rotary phone.
wait, that's a cell phone.
Yeah, it's a real phone. Runs on 4G.
What's with the odd antenna? That one looks so weird.
I don't know. It maybe it's just to look retro. It looks like it's some sort of router or modem.
Yeah, but
it doesn't look like.
I'm pretty sure the whole dial is digital. It's not even real mechanical. I don't think
it's real mechanical.
It is. Oh
yeah, hold on.
I thought that would be just a gimmick, so it looks like one. Oh man,
it's a mechanical ringer bell. There's an e-paper display. Oh,
yeah, but at some point it has to go digital in some way. Yeah, but it can be mechanical. Yeah, okay. Wow, weird.
I think the e-paper.
Yeah, it looks like a router. That's what I expected due to the Wi-Fi antenna. I thought it's like a big Wi-Fi antenna. It looks so weird.
Yeah, it's. I honestly, I think it's the same. I think it is a Wi-Fi antenna, probably. Like just.
Even though you wouldn't need one that looks like one.
I know. I guess they were like, "You want to go full retro? Let's go for it." But it looks like a router. But I will say, or like a Wi-Fi booster. That looks like the most uncomfortable thing to put next to your face to talk on.
But imagine someone pulling out something like that and right in front of you dialing. I mean, especially since no one remembers phone numbers these days.
No!
And the only phone number that I know is my own one. Anything else I have saved. So here you look at and then you. I mean, do you remember back in the days you had like a little bit of a notepad alongside where you had the numbers and you kind of pull that out and then you can kind of actually call someone. I mean,
this would have been perfect if they had brought this product out around the time that PDAs were still a thing.
I mean, imagine this would have a small display and you could use the rotary dial to send messages. Like
T9. Like T9. It's so slow, T9. That'd be the best.
And if you get it wrong, oh man.
Oh, it's like the backspace is all the way at the bottom, so it takes forever to go back. So it's just like go back.
What brand came up with this?
Let's see.
It looks so. I mean, I've expected a lot of stuff, but man.
Let's see.
This is going to sell.
Oh,
why? Okay. Why is it 4G?
I think it's just it's just the voice network that it's going to be supporting.
Okay, yeah.
So it looks like there's a 3G version. Wow, so
3G is slow. We need 5G.
Yeah, right. So it's made by a company called Sky's Edge. Let's see. Or a mechanical ringer bell, silent vibration mode, which e-paper display. So I guess the e-paper display is what's under like the rotary portion, like the numbers. So I guess you could change it for like characters for wherever you need. By the way, Sam's in the house. Hey, hi. Welcome, Sam. Yeah, we're talking about this old rotary phone. We just got told the story about the G8X shipping debacle.
Yeah, we had such a phone when I was small as well.
Yeah, this thing is nuts. Like, there's an SD card slot. Why would you need an SD card slot? Like a separate USB port for.
Does it have a camera?
Right. I don't think
It,
so.
it needs a selfie cam.
Yeah, right. Like,
Imagine taking a selfie with a rotary phone. You have no display or nothing, but at least you have the camera.
Yeah,
You're kind of
it's just
guessing.
like a fisheye lens camera.
That's fine. It will pick me up. So yeah, sure.
It's just like a fisheye camera.
This is so sick.
Let's see. Oh, the main. Oh God!
I mean,
you have to put the thing together yourself.
And the weirdest part is that I think there are people buying this.
You know, if it was like $50, I'd buy it in a heartbeat as a joke, as like a joke, a gag. But for 140, no.
I mean, at least there are 5 colors. That's important. I mean, it's the same color. It's the same color, just a little bit faded.
I would prefer it be red. I would like a red rotary.
They make only teal ones, and the mint one they put a little bit longer in the sun. The powder blue as well.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There's. Oh god, that'd be glorious. Oh.
But it's not black. It's carbon black.
Yeah. Ooh. Why don't you just call it black then? I'm like, yeah, I gotta call it something. Make black not seem so plain, I guess, in terms of shell colorings. There's But by the way, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Yeah, just wanted to say that Vesico says nostalgia is a powerful thing that I never got behind. I never got the appeal of nostalgia. I mean, so many people have it, and I get why, but I personally, I don't know.
Well, I'm a little nostalgic, as you can tell from my background.
You're not a little bit. You're heavy.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of crazy.
Just admit it.
Yeah, there's one thing I do want to call out, by the way, is today Sam and Matt both have Viper on their show today. This afternoon, starting at 3. It's going to be a great show. So if everyone's around, you guys have got to catch it. So their show is going to be great. There's coming back to the nostalgia thing, like I was showing you earlier. Because I mean, for God's sake, I've got this keyboard, and I'm wearing a Flossed in Paradise shirt from that's like from The Fifth Element. So yeah, I think I'm definitely in that camp of illogical nostalgia. There's, let me see. Oh, here, didn't mean to get that screen there. There we go. But yeah, it looks like, my background does look like the Teletubbies background, but this is actually the Windows XP Bliss background. And apparently now, if you go and look at it, there's a bunch of vines, like wine vineyard vines all over that.
Yeah, I've seen that picture, how it looks like now. Yeah, I just wanted to get to that. They added stuff in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because like this photo is probably one of the most seen photos.
Yep, it's
in history.
Yeah, but I actually think so many. Yeah, but I'm also sure most people never knew it's an actual thing, because it looks so surreal. It looks so generic, but it is an actual place.
Yeah, and it's nuts that like that.
One of the famous hills, absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's interesting, but it's interesting too, because like there's the whole nostalgia. Oh, sorry,
yeah, the weird part is actually it's a pretty simple but so iconic photo.
Well, and it's well proportioned. So I'm going to pull up the actual like photo, because the photo is actually 4:3, but like it's not 16:9. So like the proportions.
I don't think I've ever seen it in 4:3.
Here, I ended up downloading it here just so I could see.
I never had a 4:3 device.
So here, I'm going to pull this up. So the original photo is this. And so there's a little bit more foreground and there's more up on top. And so this follows the rule of thirds really well, where you've got like the sky, you got the foreground, and then you got the transition point in the middle. And it happened to work really well for computer screens at the time. Because of the fact that, you know, most of them were 4:3 at that point. But it's kind of the perfect image for that.
I think
at the time?
I think at that time we already had but I think we had a lot of 16:9 back then.
We did, but they weren't the majority, though. I don't think.
Sure, I think like
Yeah.
4x3 was already kind of outdated by then already. A couple of okay, maybe yeah. But I switched to 16:9 monitors pretty early, so yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I bought a Dell 4x3 flat panel monitor for my freshman year of college, which was 2006.
I actually still have a 16:10 monitor. I think it's 16:10. It's a little bit of an off size. It's a little bit higher than usually.
Yeah, there's because
I'm actually not a fan of 16:10. I'm 16:9. It works, but I would prefer 16:10 because I would rather have a little bit more these days. Because especially if you use a typical website, I have so much blank space on both sides, and I could use like 2 windows side by side. But I don't do that. I always use every app full screen. So I would rather have it higher.
Yeah, well, it's like you're talking about like 16:10.
Mm-hmm. What?
Like aspect ratio? Because like for a while, like 16:10.
I would like it. Like, but I would like it even higher. But 16:10 even easy. But something like, I mean, I don't think 3x2 what the Surface devices would work well. I think that would work well on a monitor. There are none like that, but
yeah, it'd be interesting. I will
but
say,
on the other side for content, yeah, makes sense.
Well, let me see if I can find this because I saw there was a monitor on eBay that was a CRT monitor that was like very high resolution, like a Sony. It wasn't technically, it was like a remake of a Sony one, but like it was.
Yeah, 21:9 is pretty common these days. A lot of gamers like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like my cousin has like an Samsung ultra wide.
I would like the one that has the Dell and Samsung have with the 32:9.
Yeah, that's what my cousin has. I think
the super ultra wide.
Let me see if I can.
That's cool. But the big one, the 49-inch that replaces like 227 inches, that would be nice. At some point, I need something like that.
Yeah, because there's it's interesting. Like you'd have. Oh, I can't find the image right now, but yeah. Sony. Yeah, this is perfect. Sony had HD CRT monitors, and they were really good. Like they're some of the sharpest images out there. You just have the trade off of it's a giant effing brick on your desk taking up half your desk, but yeah, they had some fantastic CRT monitors. Like the and also Sam saying he likes the Surface Book 3x2. Yes, I agree too. I love the screen.
Yeah, but I actually think that on a Surface Book, I found it to be too small. At least on the 13-inch, I would have.
Because it's like about this big. It's good for the work that I'm doing.
15-inch, it makes sense. On the 13-inch, I thought it a little bit too small. If you wanted 2 windows side by side, because those looked quite slim or narrow.
Yeah,
but on something bigger, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say I do like having like as you were saying a little bit taller, and I like it being a little bit taller on a laptop than necessarily on a big screen because, like on my Samsung monitor here, it's fairly it's tall enough for me, and then I care a little bit more about width with this. But when it's when it's a laptop, I don't want to do a whole bunch of scrolling because when I'm on my laptop, I'm going through spreadsheets, I'm going through Word docs.
This is actually funny because my brother uses his, I think it's a 50-inch, 55-inch. No, it must be something smaller, like 45, 50 inches. Doesn't matter. As his monitor in the sleep bedroom, and he has, since he's quite far away, the scale up so high that if he has text and he scrolls like a little bit with the mouse, like just 2 clicks, like the text is already gone. So you have no precision in the scrolling. It's so weird.
Oh man, yeah. There's one thing I'll show you guys here. I ended up finding yesterday, like the ultimate expression of nostalgia is there is a website called My 90s TV, but they also have My 70s TV and My 80s TV, and this is actually kind of crazy. I've never seen anything work like this before. So you turn. Wait,
are those real old shows?
Yeah. So this links through YouTube. So you can. Yeah. So you can also, let me see. Full screen is F. Okay. So There we go. So you can go up there. You can choose what you want, and you can choose what era you want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off sports, or you could have sports on. So then you change the channels. And these are all driven from YouTube, which is crazy, and it works really well. Like I was messing with this
just
yesterday.
look at it. It totally cuts off the actual text.
Yeah, I know.
Because the actual image isn't always 4:3, and here again, it totally cuts it off at 4.3, 4:3.
So it's proper nostalgia.
Yeah, but it because if it should cut it off at 4:3 then, if they would make it right.
Right, I think that might be what they did. There's like, I guess can you go to the actual YouTube? I can't go to the actual YouTube
because
video.
I've seen on YouTube. Just yesterday I watched a 4:3 video. So if the video is 4:3, it does make it in 4:3.
Oh, okay, yeah, because this is basically just something that goes over it. So here's the other thing too. This is just 1990. You can go to like 96 specifically if you wanted. So it's like the Super Bowl.
Because for some weird reason, yesterday, YouTube recommended Tool Time best ofs or like compilations of blooper scenes for me. I don't know why they thought I would want to see that at that point in time, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's nuts. I haven't tried this one. This one's the 1970s one.
You'll get demonetized. I don't think that he is monetized anyways.
Technically I am, but
you are okay. Yeah, but I don't think that's something gonna change with this.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna care as much. But yeah, just the fact that this exists at all is kind of crazy to me.
Oh, now it's even the one that has the curved 4:3.
Yeah. So this is the 70s one.
I mean, I'm just waiting until phones will get curved screen in this way.
Oh man, well, you know what? Maybe that'll be the third version of that rotary phone. There's oh my god, here I'm gonna take out movies, game shows, and dramas. So this one's the 80s one. So one thing I've not seen is I've not seen any of the classic Nickelodeon cartoons or game shows on this, because this is like when I was little, my bread and butter was Nickelodeon. Also, so Matt asked how I come across random shit like this. Reddit's a good way. I found this on Reddit, and like.
I actually these days also check Reddit for like once or twice a day, like scroll and scroll and scroll, like when half an hour has passed, and I'm good.
Right. No, I've had to be a little less on.
Here it didn't work out. They have it curved, but it's just cutting it off with black.
Right. Yeah. Viacom will never let cartoons on this. You're probably right. What is this?
Yeah, but what I also noticed, that's actually pretty funny. When we were small and watched our shows at, like, let's say the mid or end of 80s, I mean, you were a little bit younger, but I always thought that the stuff that I watched at that point in time was actually new. But now when I actually see some stuff and check when it was released, it was already out way before I was born. So I thought it was new because it was on TV, but it was a rerun. I don't know how many times already by then. So that's when you kind of notice how old some stuff actually was that you think is not that old.
Like that happened. That happened to me with Doug. I was like the Doug on Nickelodeon. Like they'd have like the first season on Nickelodeon. They'd play on repeat because Disney had like it after that.
Yeah,
but it was crazy because it was like early 90s, 1990, and I started watching it in like 93, 94. Yeah,
and especially in Germany when. I mean, we were even further behind because if the whole American stuff, they had to kind of synchronize it and release it. And it got like at least a year or two later, it came out in Germany. So I was even further behind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, it just goes to show like if it works really well and it was good entertainment, it'll last. You get some stuff that doesn't last, or if it's so good that it'll come back around in 20 years.
Yeah, that's exactly like for example, stuff from the 90s or let's say early 2000s. You can still watch them. It's pretty timeless, I would say. The older stuff, sometimes even more so, unless you get into the times when they had no cell phones and stuff. But I think, especially at this point in time, if you look at the whole way our society works, if you in 20 years watch stuff from now, you'll think they were bonkers. because
Oh yeah,
the society these days is so unique in an odd, socially kind of addicted way with Instagram, with Twitter, and all of that, and it feels
yeah,
odd. I mean, when I watched The Wire for the first time, the show was already out like over 10 years, and I finally watched it for the first time. And cell phones were not even a thing in the first or second season, and then they got cell phones. Or when the first time they wired the connection to kind of listen to it and so on. And it was brand new, and you thought like 10 years afterwards, wow, that's so old. But it otherwise aged pretty well. But in certain things, it aged pretty bad.
Well, and there are certain things too where they were like, okay, this.
I think the 90s were the strongest decade from what I remember. I mean, the 80s, I was just too young to really get all the good stuff. So I pretty much I grew up end of 80s, so mostly in the 90s. I get that. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that, it's kind of a similar thing for me.
The 90s were awesome because I made it. Awesome.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like I'm kind of partial to the mid to early 90s in terms of aesthetics and my a lot of my early formative
That's
memories.
when you have the most memories because you were in that age. Wait, how old are you?
I was born in 87, so I'm 32.
Okay. Yeah.
So like a lot of my stuff was like the early 90s, but then also we had a VCR, and I was the youngest kid, so we had a whole bunch of VHSs that were recorded from the late 80s that I watched, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon, and all that.
What I've actually also realized, I saw someone talking about that, how bad some certain comedy shows and so were aged because of racism, because of gender's kind of bias, and you couldn't say stuff like back then. I mean, if you would be a comedian from the 80s and say the stuff that you said back then, which were totally fine, no one really cared about it because it was just normal, and you would say this now, you could almost get in prison, but it would at least get you fired.
Right. Well, and I mean, and also, I mean, heck, like there are certain shows from the 80s that you really can't watch anymore that were staples, like like the Cosby Show.
Yeah,
like you can't watch that anymore.
I actually never really liked him.
I never really watched it either, but like
I watched.
Who's gonna go? I'd like to watch Bill Cosby today.
It was a very odd humor.
Yeah, so it's like who knows? It's yeah. Oh yeah, look at this. Ooh, 200. It's interesting too, like seeing just like the
prices,
the prices and just the styling of the vehicles. This is 1994. This is probably one of the years that stands out the most to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy seeing how all this stuff is. So.
Have you actually seen the one thing? Because it's kind of strange. If you look at a dollar store, it always keeps the $1 price. And recently I saw a price, but I think it was in Germany, and it said 1.10, even though it was a dollar store. And yeah.
Oh, really?
So that looks so weird if you have a dollar store, but everything is $1.10.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. This is also a weird Sonic 2 commercial. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm distracted.
Commercials were strange back then. If you look at the ones now, back in the days, they had nothing to do with the product usually, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, this one is like, look, I'm not even hearing anything.
Yeah.
Slices and dices.
It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to relate to the product.
Yeah, so it's just nuts. So yeah, but that's weird. But yeah, it's like that's just kind of my take on my latest nostalgia enabler. Big method of enabling my 90s nostalgia, 80s and 90s nostalgia. So like Jinsu knives. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. That's the term I was thinking about. I couldn't remember. So yeah. Oh man. But yeah, it's just it's crazy how things the more things change, the more things stay the same. In a lot of ways too. So, but yeah, that's just there's
so wait, what did you say a couple of minutes? You are a little bit into nostalgia.
Yeah.
And we just went down the rabbit hole to 4x3 TV and all those kind of things. So yeah, you're just a little.
Oh no. Okay, just to speak about the level of nostalgia I have, I went and bought it's weird, it's random and weird, but I'm a Titanic like history nut. And so like there's this one documentary, well, two, technically it's a series with two that I really loved in the 90s, and it was available forever on YouTube. Somebody uploaded it, and then A&E went and pulled it and ended up like they don't have it available. So I went and bought the DVD. I bought a DVD for the first time in like a decade, bought the DVD and ripped it to my computer so I could have that one documentary series that I'm nostalgic about. I do breathe nostalgia.
And Quebecers, right? He says Andrew's mustache is pure nostalgia. Yeah, his beard is still in the late 80s.
Yes, pretty much. There's I had Sam saying, well, he was alive and watched the Berlin Fall and was blown away back then. Yeah, and after all the years of the Cold War, and to see, like that's something that's crazy too. Because
wait, when did the Berlin Wall fall? When year was
1990, I believe? Because 91 was when the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
89.
So that was too early for me, because I really don't realize that being a thing back because I was like 9. So
yeah, well, the interesting thing. So like for me, in terms of the closest my memory has for that was not so much the Berlin Wall falling, but Boris Yeltsin coming to power was what I remember a little bit. I remember the name Boris Yeltsin.
When did Soviet Russia collapse?
90 or 91.
See, I don't even get that. I mean, especially if I think back now, even when Yugoslavia, which kind of impacted me, also was kind of split up. I don't even really get that, and that was a time that I should actually be a little bit more aware of. But
well, and there's some interesting things too about like East and West Germany as well that I was in class. I took it was like Germany after World War II, and it was East Germany, and they talked about how like there was a command economy, and so they tried to like drive like fashion trends was a crazy thing. Like I have a book here. It's actually it's a college book that I never sold, and it's actually I can't grab it right now because it's holding up one of my monitors, but it's called Fashioning Socialism, and it was basically in East Germany, the Soviet Union trying to go in and like force trends, like trying to control fashion trends, and it failed miserably because people still wanted Western fashion, and they wanted to be able to determine their own fashion versus having the government direct it, and so it's interesting seeing that, and it's really cool. It's great seeing how they kind of came back together and healed.
Yeah, but see, here's the weird. It's kind of funny, but not at all, because Maddie says in 30 years there's gonna be two dudes talking about the year they were born in 2020. It's gonna be a long conversation. It's actually not that much about the length, but it will look like a horror movie. So many fiction.
Yeah, right.
No, because there was this. There is a YouTube video, and they have this kind of like sometimes they have this show where they have, I think it's kind of playing in the 80s, but they have a time machine, and there's this guy traveling throughout the ages. And in the last episode, he was in 2020, and they told him, so they asked from the 80s, how's 2020? And he said, something's weird. I don't see anyone on the streets, and all the people are gone. And when I checked in the supermarket, there were no toilet paper, and no this and that. And then he saw a couple of people with masks on and so on. And then he heard about the bushfires. Then he heard about this and that. And he said, get me back. He said, to what year? Doesn't matter, just as long as it's not 2020.
Yeah. Well, and this is going to be interesting too, because we're going to see a whole generation basically.
Yeah, that's so weird about North Korea, since Burns is mentioning this with the fashion. There's like 6 or 7 official haircuts for North Koreans, and for the women like 11 or so. You can only have one of these 6, and it can't look like, for example, Kim Jong-un. I mean, that's so crazy. If you look in the Western Hemisphere, they have like thousands different haircuts, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's a cultural thing, and plus also multiple generations have just been conditioned to this. And yeah, I need a Kim haircut. Oh man, I want to see a video like so there's that video of like there's that video like Rodney Dangerfield or it's like have you seen that video of like the kid who's on the go-kart and he's like spinning and then it like goes off into this whole crazy video where
Yeah.
they need to do that except it's Kim Jong-un and he's just like rolling.
Uh-huh.
You know, like that would be kind of hilarious to do, but you know.
You know what's actually funny? I saw a great meme today. There was a picture of the two Logan brothers and their mother. And then someone tweeted it and said, the Logan mother is the only woman on the world with 3 cunts.
Oh my god!
But it's so true.
Oh,
those Logans are really the worst of the worst. I mean, they have so much money. They have everything. The world is handed on a platter, and they fuck up so many times.
What do you think about?
But I guess that's the thing. If you grow up with this, that you can do everything and you get away with it, you are trying to push the limits further and further, even though you are already way past them.
You're right. Well, yeah, and I mean that's one reason why during this whole COVID thing, with a lot of the celebrities talking and being vocal, has pissed a lot of people off because those people don't live in the same world that 99% of people in the world live in. So it's like no one really wants to hear their words of encouragement, at least in my opinion. But it's crazy. I don't know. Yeah, Matt's talking about Kim Jong-un. He didn't actually die.
No.
Yeah, no.
He was just in a kind of vacation home somewhere around the beach, maybe recovering from a surgery or something like that. But yeah,
probably. And I can tell you this though, I wouldn't want to be a surgeon in North Korea for the great leader.
Yeah. Like, if you fuck up, I mean, I'm pretty sure if the surgeon would have fucked it up, he wouldn't have made it to the next day. Absolutely not.
Oh, no.
Even if he wouldn't be a man kind of accountable at all, he would not. But for example, I've seen a lot of videos where they are discussing now who might be the next leader because they think that he's in pretty bad health generally.
Well, and that's what happens when he's giant like that. You know,
and the theories is that it might be his sister or I think his father-in-law, because he's already so long into the whole regime and everything else, but he would be the first one that's not actually out of that family and so on. But the weird part is also he had a brother, so Kim Jong-un, who actually had more rights on the throne, but he was a little bit of a loose cannon. And well, he was once on a vacation out of the country where he shouldn't have been, and he didn't make it.
Right. Well, and you know, it's and I've heard that like that Kim Jong-un's sister is kind of vindictive. From
have you heard the story about which one was it? There was a story about he was also kind of like a dictator, but I'm not quite sure which one it was. But he got to power super early on. He was like 6 when he was kind of on the throne, but his stepmother kind of took over the responsibility, and she was the leader, but kind of just as a backup. But once he would have been old enough, he would have taken over the throne. And he never left his palace. He was always there. He had all his servants and everything else, and he got so sick, and he was a sadist, and he killed people just for fun, tortured them, and he became a complete sicko. At the end, he kind of got what he deserved as well. But I mean, if you grow up like corrupted from the core, I mean, it can't work out.
Oh, I know. I agree because if you grow up corrupted and privileged or like that, like you don't. I mean, there's no way unless like something extreme happens where the plight of real people are shoved in your face. You're not going to care because you've never lived that, you know. And so it's crazy. By the way, Matthias 1983 says hi, hello, welcome. we've got Sam's dear leader. I'd love to do the surgery, but have you seen the hospitals in the DPRK? I'm using water, duct tape, and twine, man. Kind of being set up to fail. You dig? That's exactly how they go. Oh my god. Well, and it's like apparently this sort of culture, this sort of like have to be careful.
I mean, I would be surprised if, for example, someone would shot Kim Jong-un in the head, he would be dead, and then tell the surgeon, you fucked up. I didn't do anything yet.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, and and it's well, you know what, and it's crazy because the same sort of having to be careful about what you say and who you say it to in North Korea comes back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast. It's a similar thing in Samsung. In the Republic of Samsung, it's the exact same culture.
Sounds like a country, yeah. Yeah, I mean, North Korea is such a weird country. I've seen quite a lot of documentaries recently and videos about it. I mean, it's almost unbelievable if you would tell a person who doesn't really know the whole world and you would try to explain it to him now that a country like this exists in 2020. I mean, it's actually way more believable that we have like these islands in the Amazon or somewhere else where we have these native indigenous people that have no idea about civilization and so on. That's more believable than what North Korea is, that the whole world allows this to happen. And they can't just say, no, that's not how you treat people. But yet there are millions of people getting treated like the worst shit of the worst.
Well, see, here's the thing for me that makes me even like more than North Korea that I find crazy that this exists is Saudi Arabia and the type of stuff that goes on in Saudi Arabia.
But
they still have crucifixion as like an execution.
Yeah, sure, but I still think that today in some ways are not that off, because if I, for example, a North Korean guy, he one person does something, his whole family gets into the working camps and so on. And for example, I've seen there is this guy, I think he's Russian, and he made it super covert, and he kind of secretly hid cameras and so on, and he made a documentary, like 2 already, and he's still making a few following ones. And he kind of imposed to be a lawyer so he can get into the country without a visitor's visa, so he can actually move around more freely, because if you are on the visitors, you can only see certain stuff, but he can walk around. And he's recorded some things, and then he, for example, asked I don't know what the woman's job was, but he asked that if she could leave the country and go to some other, what she would like to see, which country. And you saw kind of the fear in her face not to say something wrong, even though there was she didn't know someone was recording and so on. And then she paused for a second, and then she said, but why would I ever leave the country? It's what I want and so on. But it didn't feel like she really meant that at all.
Well, in Korea, there is a very strong distrust of outsiders in both the North and the South. And in the book that I've been reading, they talk about how
but that's Asian countries in general. Asian countries are odd in terms of non-Asians.
Right. Well, and there's this in Korea specifically. There is Korea. There's some sort of bloodline that they say that they can track their lineage down to, some sort of sacred bloodline, and that kind of feeds in Korea specifically their xenophobism, and their distrust, and they're like the. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Like, they're super nationalistic. This book describes them as they're the most nationalistic sets of two nationalistic countries on the planet, North Korea and South Korea. And it's because of that pride in in the culture that's driven partially by that belief of that sacred bloodline. And it's something that I don't understand as a Westerner, but it's interesting that that's like still a major like psychological driving force in which is interesting. That leads into today.
The weird thing is also, though, if you think about it, in America, in so many movies you see, they're always so proud of protecting the home country, and America is everything else. But for example, in Germany, with our history, no one's allowed to be proud of his country, because the moment you say you are proud of Germany, it means you're a Nazi. So they can't They can't even pull that off. And even though it has happened like at least maybe 2, if not 3 generations in the past, if you say I'm proud of Germany, you're a racist. So we can't do those kind of movies.
Well, and well, like because I remember like Das Boot did, from what I read, did terrible in Germany, but it did great everywhere else, and it's because people at the time in the 80s weren't ready to have.
No, Das Boot was a big success.
It was a big success in Germany.
It was a worldwide success because it was something at that time that I think people didn't see, not haven't seen it that way.
Right. Well, and yeah, it's interesting, and it's like, I mean, and I found myself more conflicted about saying how proud I am of my country in the last 4 years than I've ever had in my life, just because of the type of things that are happening.
But see, this is the thing. For example, Matt says, "Wait, Germans are all Nazis? Who knew?" And then Quebecer says, "I'm proud of the German race. Cue a German anthem." The thing is, it's so ingrained into the German culture that no one is, even though he would be kind of or want to be proud about the country. The moment he thinks, even in his head, I'm proud of Germany, he already thinks he's a racist and he can't even say it. So people who actually say this out loud usually are also racist or Nazis, because anyone else in Germany, since he grew up with that thinking, would never say that or even think it.
Right. Well, and it draws into the line of like, so back in the days of the Nazi era days, and even before in a lot of other countries, it was ethnic nationalism. So it was like the idea, like ethnicity was tied with your nationalism, versus in the United States, where it's much more.
But on the other hand, I have to say,
nationalism.
But I also have to say that especially the Asian countries are very racist against anyone that's not Asian. I mean, no one though would say, "Hey, you are racist," but the way they behave, they don't like outsiders at all. If it's in Japan, if it's in China. I mean, China maybe more so, but in Japan, they hate outsiders because they have no intent of kind of globalizing. They all speak still Japanese. No one really wants to learn English because why care? But for example, in Germany, I mean, there's so many different kind of countries inside of this country. And I complain if I see for example, a person who's like 40 years already in the country still doesn't speak proper German. And I see so many of those. It kind of annoys me that there's still young people who can't properly talk because they are in their own commune, all talking maybe Turkish, if it's Greek or if it's Italian. I mean, you are in this country. Adjust to it.
Right. Well, and it's back in World War II, Japan was like under Imperial Japan, which was very much the army controlled everything, and so the people didn't have as much of a say. But like they were every bit as racist as the Nazis were. They just weren't as systematic about it as the Nazis were, because like with what happened in China and Korea and everything, you know, and it's but yes, like Q3 Becker says the best, like there's xenophobes and xenophobia. And that's a big part of it. And of course, also a lot of that was also just the fact that I think part of that was also driven into the modern era because of the fact that Westerners came in and forced open everything, though they were still crazy xenophobes. Well, they weren't crazy, but like they were crazy xenophobic at that time. And so it's interesting seeing how that's developed.
But you know what? Something that I never really understood is national pride. Because, I mean, why would you be proud of any country? I mean, you are not the country. Just like so many people are proud of their sports team. You are not the sports team. So I never understood that. Maybe it's because I, for example, was born in Germany, but I'm kind of Croatian, but also kind of Slovenian. So I never really had a nationality that I felt I belonged to. I never felt really Croatian, and I never felt obviously Slovenian and German. So I don't get it, because if a country does something, I didn't do it. I would be proud if I won the World Cup, if I won this or that. But the country won it. I didn't do anything. So that's something that I never really understood, especially with the soccer teams. When they say, we won. And then I look at him 50 kilograms overweight, drinking a beer, and I thought, what did you win? You won nothing.
I mean, it's like, it's tough because okay, here we
community. I get that, but I never really got community either.
Well, and I guess it depends too. Like one of the big things with pride that we have here in the United States, at least we did for a long time, is the fact that the United States was were the ones that drove the drive to to get to the moon, and and there's certain other things too, and and it just depends. But also, like some of the stuff that I've been really proud of, I've seen some undone in these last 4 years. So it's like I go back and forth. I'm still proud of being an American, but I'm not proud of our government.
Yeah,
Right
yeah, I
now.
get that. But for example, also I have a coworker who's Croatian, and he's so proud of the country, and he always says like, "Whoa, what we have invented and so on." But Croatia didn't invent like five important things. There's so many other countries that invented so much, and I always think when he's talking about pride of what they did and what they invented, I thought Croatia didn't do much in a worldwide scheme. So what are you proud of?
Well, like I guess it depends too. Like there are certain countries where like I could say conceptually like Switzerland.
See, for me,
They like they stayed like neutral during World War II, and despite all of that, despite Hitler being on their doorstep, they managed to stay neutral and
yeah,
all that. And that's one of
yeah,
those
yeah,
national
but
pride things
I
you
mean, I
get.
kind of get it. But for me, the most hypocritical thing is that he says he's so proud of Croatia, he loves it so much, and he would do anything for it. Where does he live? He lives in Germany. Why? And he so often says that he would go anytime back to Croatia. It's just a nicer living. And I think, why don't you go? Well, why? Because he earns like 4 times more here than he would in Croatia. And life wouldn't be that great as it is for him, where he goes like maybe once or twice for 4 weeks, goes on a vacation there to visit some people there and be close to the ocean and so on. But he wouldn't think like that if it would be there every day of the year, work there and get like fourth of the money. So it's easy to say my country is the best if you only know it from a holiday.
Is it bad to say that Steph and I are thinking about once we're done with the wedding and everything that we're thinking about saving up possibly to go on a cruise in Croatia? Then
There's nothing. I'm not saying. I mean, it's a great place to make a vacation. Absolutely. There's nothing against it, but I mean, being so proud and always talking about how shitty Germany is and how much better Croatia is. But why isn't it? I mean, he also said that he would have already moved to there if it wouldn't be of his 2 sons because they are so accustomed to Germany. But I mean, that's just a way of lying to yourself, in my opinion. Because if you would want to, because both of his sons are almost old enough to live on their own, so if they want to, they can just stay in Germany and visit them. So it's not.
Well, and Matt Tyler has a good point too, where like he's very proud to be British and he's very proud of the royal family, and one of those things too is like there's a lineage. So like you can think about like I guess one good example, like a maybe sort of comparative thing would be like so like in there's a bunch of different sects of Christianity, and so I have family who are Roman Catholic, and they are extremely proud of being Roman Catholic because there's a big lineage in cultural tradition that's along with it that they're carrying along with it as well. And so I could definitely see that aspect of it as well too, because the ideas behind, like say with the United States, there's the idea of the liberal democracy. We've not been the best at implementing it, but then there is that ideal too. So it's like, so I can definitely see that aspect of nationalistic pride.
Okay, so I get it being proud of British. Great Britain has achieved a lot of stuff, but royal family, what have they done recently that's kind of that you could be proud of? I don't get it, because what are they even doing? I mean, they are kind of like royal celebrity, but they don't have any actual power. They don't have a say in anything. They are just old.
I will say, at least with I
Right.
forgot. I don't know which one it was, but I know one of them served in the military, or I don't know if both of them served. But I know at least one of them was actually deployed, and like because he seemed like what was he seems like
You mean the princess? The princess?
One of the princes. He was the one who was like, I don't want to be treated any other way.
Yeah, Prince
Any
Harry,
different from
and
anyone
Prince
else.
Harry gave away his title. So
Oh yeah. Then and I can respect that too, wanting to have some semblance of a normal life as well. So it's interesting. They both served in the Air Force, because I thought one of them was deployed to Afghanistan on the ground. So I'm not
no.
sure, but I had a lot of respect.
They
for
were
that.
in the military. They were both in the military. But what they actually did there, because I don't think they were in kind of like really critical situations where they were super. in danger or something like that.
I mean, it's like, well, and here's another thing too with the royal family as well. I think a big part of the royal family, the monarch is the British way. Here, I'll put it up.
I generally don't get at all why there's still something like kingdoms and so on, because I mean that thing seems like a so outdated thing with democracy being out there and all those kind of things.
Well, it's one a method of preserving. It's almost like a nostalgia, I would feel like, but it's also like preserving an aspect of your government that's existed for a long time, but just kind of changing the role, like how the monarchy became more of a symbol of national pride and and more symbolic leadership rather than real like policy making. And so it's like I can definitely see it's kind of like in some ways it's like we don't have in the United States we don't have a similar equivalent. I'd say the closest equivalent we have are like the founding fathers, but they're all dead and so I think that's something that's kind of unique for countries that have parliamentary monarchies.
Have you seen the amazing meme? That oh man, Trump is sometimes he's the coolest. I mean, he's so out of touch. But when he said that he had it harder than Lincoln, and then you see a picture of Lincoln, I was shot, bro.
yeah.
So funny. I mean, the one guy was killed for what he did for the country and all of these things, and the other one, I had it way harder.
Yeah, well,
he's a billionaire, oh man.
Yeah, I mean Trump. Oh God. Well, I mean, this is the same guy.
Bro.
This is the same guy who said he was going to build a wall on the Mexico border of Colorado, which doesn't even border Mexico.
I'm actually pretty sure that he's pissed that his plans got kind of a little bit confused now due to the whole Corona thing. It came into the way. He still would kind of get that, I guess.
Yeah, he
would follow up on it.
This is also the same guy who's an authoritarian capitalist who tear gases peaceful protesters so he can get a photo op. And so get this, that church that he took that photo op in front of, the diocese that was there, who's in charge of the whole thing, they removed her from the property so they could do this photo op without her permission.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, say what this is the last bit of political that I'll get, but I like based off of there's all these protests, but like specifically with what happened in DC, that was very much a fascist approach, and that's something that scares me.
Did you have actually any protests kind of near you?
Oh yeah, we've had protests.
Big stuff.
Like, I mean, it's a college town, so it's as big as you can get in a college town. But yeah, we had a Walgreens had the windows smashed in, but that's the only bit of vandalism.
Because I saw pictures of Louisville in Kentucky and how it was lit up and everything, and I thought I was there when I was the 2 months in the US, and that was pretty close, and it's a pretty big thing. So.
Oh yeah,
you see a little bit of a different perspective if you were in that place, or because I was 2 times in Louisville, and if you think of something like that happen, it feels a little bit odd because I've never heard of something like that in Germany or so, at least not on that scale.
And it's so widespread here is the other thing too, and that's been.
Wait, just to actually get that right, because maybe I missed the start. Did this whole thing with the protests and all start just because of George Floyd, or was there something prior to that already?
It was the spark, but there was fuel.
It was the big igniter, right?
It was the ignition source. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But the fuel had been poured for probably 20 years.
Yeah, that's for sure. I meant something super recent, right beforehand, that made it just a little bit. Yeah, so it was just Floyd. So I just thought maybe I missed it because it seems so extreme because of one fuck up, because of one stupid cop, or maybe let's say 4. The whole nation got completely out of whack, completely insane.
Well, and Sam might be able to speak this as far as because he's a former police officer and he was a good one, and he was. It's interesting talking about like I think he had some special insights as to like some of the materials that they're getting in and like the militarization of the police is something that I have a problem with.
Yeah, but what I don't get is also the whole part how this whole thing happened. I mean, if you just think about it, we are in a worldwide pandemic. Everyone's already on the edge, and then some odd kind of what was it, a salesman, one on the cashier, accused him of having a fake, a counterfeit $20 bill. And how could something like that get so out of hand? I mean, even if it was a counterfeit $20 bill, you can get a little bit of a fine maybe for that. But you definitely don't deserve, no matter how wrong it turns out, to get kind of killed off because of that.
Well, and I think what happened was, it was, at least how I interpret it, that specific situation, not the whole like argument about police, the racial tensions and whatnot, but just for this specific thing, it seems to me like, because there is data to show that like use of force is used more on people of color, it seems like.
Absolutely. I'm sure.
And so what happened, I think, was the initial decision to use force was because of that bias. But then I think the fact that he kneeled on the guy's neck for 8 minutes was because he was an asshole who had his pride hurt because he couldn't get the guy in the car. And so he just wanted to do it to be vindictive. But
have you read about the guy? There was this guy saying that he was arrested for the same thing also because of a alleged $20 counterfeit bill. But he survived. Why? Because he was white. He didn't get even into trouble. Or, for example, I saw a video where there was a kind of parking lot and there was a guy, maybe something like a drug addict and so on, and they wanted him to get out of the car. There were two guys and so on. And the guy opened the door and held his hands like this, so ready to be kind of cuffed. No, what did the cop do? He saw he was black. He kind of yanked him out. The guy didn't have even time to pull on his pants. So he was pretty much half naked from the lower side, and then he kind of kicked him and everything else. Even though the guy complied, he surrendered and did everything, and still he got beaten up for what?
Yeah, it's, and I don't have a great way answer for addressing this, like, because I mean,
or did you see the other video? There was a guy on the kind of where the trains drive, and he had a shake and he had a burger or something like that. And then a cop came up to him and told him it's illegal to eat here or something like that. And a couple of seconds later, he said, "What I'm doing is not illegal," and something like that. And the cop said, "Yes, what you are doing is." But he said, "It's not prohibited to eat here. No, you are resisting against arrest." But even if he would resist against arrest, he's not doing anything in the first place that was illegal, so he should be even considered to be arrested. So what the mindfuck is going on in some police officers trying to think of something, and if you don't comply, you get arrested. And if you comply, it won't help you either.
Yeah, well, and then you get the whole immunity aspect where, like, then if something goes wrong, so it's, the problem is we are expected to act calm, even if some officers who maybe don't have the training that they may need, or something, a de-escalation training, which was something that we need to be focusing on. If it turns out like stuff gets escalated, we're still not, we're, as a populace, is required not to escalate as well. But I don't know. I think that a lot of it is just, I think, training, and we need to focus more on de-escalation, and and it just depends. And Sam, and I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on stuff too. Just because I know, and it's like, Sam was one of the damn good cops, and there's a lot of good cops out there. I think that there are certain things that drive me crazy, like seeing the Punisher symbol on cars.
The problem that I'm also seeing is this: there are, I don't know how many bad cops, but those are the ones that get public, though, due to social media now. Everyone, if 5 people screw up in the US today, you will hear about all 5, but you're not going to hear about all the millions who do an amazing job, who help out people. Sometimes you see, for example, I've seen a few videos on Reddit where a white police officer helped the black guy or something similar, just so you get it. And this exists, but this gets ignored. But if you fuck up, this gets blown out of proportion. So the small minority that are the screw-ups seem so much bigger than they actually are. But that's how things work these days.
Yeah, and
and that makes makes the picture look bad for all the good cops, because I'm sure for every fucked up police officer there are millions of good ones.
Well, and one thing I've I've not really seen any big news articles saying that police officers in Missouri have been like being violent with protesters. From what I've seen in Missouri, it seems like the
Yeah,
police officers have been doing really well. Like here in Columbia, they took a knee with everyone there. Even
that's what I wanted to.
even
Yeah,
know,
no, that's what I actually wanted to get to. Is there actually a statistic in maybe states that are kind of that have a bigger black popularity, or I mean,
more
not
offenses,
popularity,
more.
where they have more black people along, but mixed already a little bit more in together. If those are kind of behaving different, that's also pretty interesting, because I'm pretty sure there are states that are way more. I almost would like to say ignorant to black people. So what I mean is that they don't care if someone is black or white. So everyone is just the same. And if there are states who think like that, so people are people, and the color doesn't matter, and how many states there are or how extreme those are who think still the way that black people are something less.
Well, and that's something that surprises me about like Minnesota. It is Midwest, but it's way north. And it's I think what's important is finding ways to gather data about how big the issue really is, and then being able to take action on it, and also change the culture in those certain precincts and cities where
Yep.
it seems to be a problem.
I mean, I also actually don't get how in 2020 we should be so civilized, we should be so modern thinking, how something like a color of your skin still even matters at all. Especially in the US, where you are so confronted with that so early on. It should be done already. I mean, I know, for example, in Germany, we don't have many black people here. And if you see someone, for example, for a couple of years ago, we had in our whole company, like with 500 people, we had 2 black guys. Everyone knew about these 2 black guys, but because they kind of stick out. But it's not like someone cared really after all. But in a country where you have proportionally so much more, it should be something that you are just used to by now. That isn't even something you should get used to.
Well, and Sam says like they've had talk about disbanding the Minneapolis PD, and I've had a friend who's like we need to just disband the police department forces, and like I don't know how good that would be, because I mean, here's the real life example of like what if your next door neighbor is having a meth like a meth meltdown over there, and you can hear them assaulting someone, or who are you going to call? There's got to be some force there that's going to serve and protect. So it's like I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I'm just more saying things to think about. Yeah, Ghostbusters. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Quick question: Minneapolis is in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, Minneapolis is in Minnesota.
Yeah, where is Minnesota?
It's north. It's like two states north of Missouri. So it's smack dab in the middle of the country.
Pretty much in the center, but okay, yeah, okay.
Call the non-violent huggy guys and pals. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Sam's. Yeah, I just don't have a good solution, but I definitely don't think that getting rid of police is an answer, because then who enforces the laws?
Yeah, but why doesn't seem to be racism a thing in Canada at all?
Well, apparently there are some issues there.
Yeah, but I don't think at all on that scale. I mean, you never hear it really. I mean, maybe they don't have they don't have the history with black people like the US ever had, and they don't have the government that reacts so wrongly about it. Because I think Trump fucked up pretty much everything he could do wrong. He did, and even more so. Because I mean, if you think about it properly, how could this man possibly actually still have chances to become the next president again? I mean, in my opinion, if you see things objectively, he should have no chance. But his chances actually look pretty good that he will get a second.
Well, part of the problem is I think Trump and his cronies have the will to try and rig an election. I don't know if they have the means, but they have the will. Plus, also, Trump is already setting up stuff now where he's already planting seeds to question the what's the term? to question the results of the election if he doesn't win. The legitimacy.
There's actually also one thing. I heard a podcast recently. I'm not quite sure about the numbers, but they said if you, for example, I'm not quite sure if that was because the main topic was about there was the candidate, but it was a 2018 podcast for the guy to become the New York governor, I think. But they also talked about the presidency, and I'm not sure if what it's considering about. But he said that, for example, I think like 5% of all the money of donations that the president, or for what he gets in terms of the whole, what is it called, the whole thing, when presidency, when he does all those kind of traveling
the speeches
around, the speeches and all. So the whole money that they need for that and what they get and so on is given by 5% of just the people. So it means that 5% have, I think, like 80% of the donations in their hand, and 5% of the whole people have 80% of the power over the whole or the presidency. I mean, I explained it pretty terribly, but it's hard that such a small minority has so much power, because the small little donations don't care at all.
Well, and then we also have Citizens United here, which gives corporations the same rights as people, which gives them a disproportionately large amount of influence in our government. So then we've got now we have those rich elites who are at the head of these companies driving policy, and that's the movement that's come out of Trump's part of the Republican Party now, which are authoritarian capitalists, where it's like they're authoritarian and they're capitalism to the extreme, which is at the detriment of the rest of the people. At least in my opinion, anyway. My opinion, I'm sure, differs from other people, but at least that's how I see it.
What is actually also pretty interesting, I never thought about it, because Quebecer says, I don't remember seeing a Native American person ever. There are a few Indian reserves. Does Canada even have Indians or Native Americans? Because those are Native Americans. Are there like Native Canadians? Is there something like that at all?
Like there's indigenous peoples like the so they have Inuits, and I'm sure there's Native Americans who are up, who are tribes who are up north. There's Keith Becker. I'm sure you're going to be able to speak a little bit better to it than me because you actually live there. But yeah, there is an issue with all of it, so it's just crazy. Here, let's see. Oh, well, you know what? Let's yeah, maybe we should.
I don't get it. Why is he not comfortable? Why is his thinking? It was so egregious. I don't quite get it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's egregious. It's just getting into a headspace, I think.
Yeah, but it's not like some.
Making sure we're not in a negative headspace, which is.
No, but I also think that everyone here can see everything, and I don't think he will get judged for it. I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. This is we're not judging anyone here. This is one thing where I want people to be able to speak to what they think, and because also other people's points of views are also good to have, because that's part of how you fight just like this tunnel visioned, not broadening your horizons sort of thing, and exposing yourself to new ideas and new opinions is a good thing. So that's one thing I want to make sure with the show. And I hope we're not making anyone comfortable with the topic, because it's an uncomfortable topic. It really is. And I don't have a good solution for it. And I don't think anybody does on there, but it's something we wanted to make sure that it's something that I felt was worth talking about, because we are dealing with it. But
it's something you can't just ignore. I mean, it's become way bigger than it ever should have.
Right. But I will say that we all definitely are in it together. That everyone here is in it together. That's for sure. But yeah, this has been great. This has been one of our most engaged podcasts that we've had.
Just to end it with one thing that I think is super sad is that in 2020 you still have to actually kind of make such a big fuss out of Black Lives Matter, that you even have to say something like that. Even if just lives matter is enough, whatever you add in front of that shouldn't be even a thing to be discussed. Lives matter. Whatever else, if it's black now, I mean, obviously now it's all about black, because I've also seen these people who say, but all lives matter. How can you just say blacks? And then the blacks say, yeah, but about right now, it's that the black people are kind of getting screwed over, and therefore the Black Lives Matter. It doesn't say that just because in this case Black Lives Matter, they matter more than white life. That's not a whole thing. But that you even have to mention that anything attached to lives matters. It's
right.
sad to see that we are still so kind of backwards thinking in this aspect.
Well, and it's one of those things where certain science fiction has done a really good job of showing it. Like Battlestar Galactica did a really good job where with gender equality, where there's no men and women's bathrooms, it's just the bathroom. You know, it's like little stuff. I like that, like sort of thing where it's like it's not even you know.
I have to actually, once it gets to gender, I think the whole thing is absolutely laughable. That we now have like unisex bathrooms, that there are, I mean, especially the podcast that I've listened to, and when they talked about that there is this LGBT these days, where there was lesbians, gay, transgender, and they're adding new stuff now all the time. I mean, anyone can feel like what he is, but on a general term, you are a male or you are female. You can be maybe a mix of it. I get that. But now people, I mean, there is this guy who says that on one day he's a 50-year-old male, and the next day he says he's a 20-year-old female, Asian descent, and all these kind of things. And but these, because there's this gender fluidity these days where you are what you say you are. And then the guy said, couldn't you say then on one day, if you, for example, are a 40-year-old muscled male, you can say, I'm a 10-year-old boy, and then you can participate on that wrestling match and beat up all the small boys. And the next day you say you are a 30-year-old woman and do some kind of things that they do, because you are gender fluid. You should be able to do that. And I mean, the whole thing, I mean, it's so weird that people are making such a big fuss of what they are right now. And I get it, back in the days, if you were gay or lesbian or something like that, you kind of stayed in your closet because people thought whatever. But now they are not just proud of what they are kind of forcing it on anyone else. And you have to respect that now. They won't go on a female bathroom or on a male bathroom because they think there's something else. I mean, at some point it's getting too far. That's a little bit kind of, that's just typical Gen Z. Sorry.
Well, it's like I can't speak to it because I just.
I mean, you have to listen to the podcast. It was pretty interesting of how ridiculous further this thing goes than anyone normally thinking would ever imagine to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is the type of thing where I don't have a good answer, and all I can really do is try, and we can really do is try and promote the ideals that we want to live by, and we strive for society, and it's not an easy answer, and it's not an easy battle, you know, and it's I'm just glad that we have everyone here I'm just glad that everyone here values each other and recognizes that value. And that's something that I just you can't really put a price on. And it's something that I'm personally very thankful for. You know, and it's nuts. And one thing Sam was saying, you know, it's like it's hard not to get charged up with these sort of topics because they're so divisive in our society now. But it's something that we kind of needs to be talked about.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't get why they are divisive. Why would you think any other way? And I'm not talking about what this guy did is good and what this guy does. Just what the right thing is. I think that should be a given standard. You shouldn't even have to discuss if this is right or wrong. It should be just obvious.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the other side too. It's like, think about like with the book I was talking about with like in South Korean culture, where for them respect was bribing these companies or the government, and that was like part of their socially accepted stuff, but it's not for us. So it's like there is a line, but like where is it? And and it's muddy when you're going with very different cultures too, but it's more divisive when it's within your own culture. So, it's nuts, and I don't have a great answer, and I wish I did, but that's the $1 million thing.
But the only thing that feels weird about right now is we will not dive into this. Why we? Who's we?
Oh, because Matt and Sam have their show, but that's fine because their whole thing with their show is it's more just,
they are not talking about it in their show. Yeah, okay, no.
Yeah. Because their show is way more hanging out, which is fine.
I get that. Yeah, I mean, we don't have topics either. It came up in some way.
It kind of came up organically for us. So, and it's that's just fine, and it's one of those things where. We kind of came up on this topic because actually my topics were originally like all tech stuff, but you know what? That's part of the discussion, and one reason why we value everyone's input for this, because we don't know where our topics will go, and it's good to get other people's input because that's how we grow. So, but yeah, this has been great. This has been a great stream.
I actually now I'm thinking if we have in German a kind of corresponding to butter, because I saw a video where some guy in a movie did it a lot, and they cut it all together, and it was just bottom, like for a minute straight. So I actually would like to know. I'm not aware of it right now, but I'm sure we must have something similar, like bottom.
Yeah, but I should get like a sound effect thing for it. Dun dun. Have the Law and Order dun dun. Be perfect. But awesome. Yeah, and I respect that we can have this conversation, and we don't always agree on everything, and that's part of it too. That's good. So but this has been great. But I think this is probably about a good time to end it here. I've got to go mow at some point in this 90-degree weather.
Oh yeah,
I gotta mow this hill. I'm gonna mow this hill behind me.
I should do too, but it's raining. It's raining like every second day, so you can't, because one day is not enough to dry up, and then it's raining. But the fucked up thing is, they said, I think on Wednesday it was good weather, and they said now, up until Wednesday, and they said that with Thursday the bad weather is coming, and it should clear up on Saturday. And I thought, my week off will start then, and I have a week good weather, so I can finally also review the cameras that I have right now and so on. But no, it's Sunday. It's still rainy. And what I heard when I checked how's the weather tomorrow, it will be rainy. So
there's it's like it was yesterday. I mowed our backyard and it was really hot. But what I did was I ended up just pouring with the water hose, poured water over my head, and then came inside. Instead, Steph was like, "Oh my God, is that all sweat?" And I'm like, "Oh. Yeah, it's so hot out there." I might have gotten out of unloading the dishwasher there during that. I'm a bastard, so but awesome. Well, this has been great. But these 2 hours just passed by like that. Like, this is so quick. But this is. Oh, there you go. Yeah, gel thing. Yeah.
What is cholit?
Well, it's chilled.
Chilled. Yeah, I thought I never heard that word. Yeah, okay. I thought I never heard that word. Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just like wash the, not wash, but like mow the lawn in swimming trunks and then just like spray the hose all over me when I'm done. But that may be a little hillbilly, but whatever works.
A little bit rednecky, huh?
Yeah, a little bit rednecky, but whatever. That's fine. So, but awesome. Well, hey, on that note, what stuff do you have coming up on your channel?
I'm actually trying to get rid of all the stuff so I can get a little bit of a break by now. But I still have 4 headphones, still 3 speakers, 2 amps, I think. Now I got the one action cam and the other one, a mic. Actually, I have 4 amps along. So these portable ones. Actually, I have the BTR 5 now from FiiO. So you have the 3, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you have the new one.
Yeah, the 5. Actually, pretty nice, I have to say. I like the clip-on a lot.
Yeah, the clip is nice.
But it's quite a bit bigger than my ES100. And the weird thing is this runs 9 hours, which is good. This about 12 hours and is even smaller, and both use LDAC. So it's pretty surprising how good of a battery this one is. But the weirdest thing is actually this one. I have the FiiO Q5S, which is pretty much a big version of the BTR5, so also a Bluetooth amplifier and so on. It's supposed to run for 25 hours. It holds maybe for 7. This thing is supposed to run 10 hours, but lasts 12 or 11, so even longer. And the odd thing is this one gets warm, where this one doesn't get at all. So FiiO does some stuff good, but the BTR5 I really like. For 100, it's a great buy, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like I've been happy with mine, but that's so cool that thing is there. And apparently, it's a little bit bigger than the one I have too. So that's what gave me a little bit of pause.
What I like about the clip is that you can turn it both ways, because the normal way would be the other way around, but then the cable sticks out this way. But since I'm left-handed, I like to have the controls on the other side, so I can just flip it out. That's way more convenient than the smaller one does. So I like the clip. I mean, it's plasticky and it might break, but it's nice.
Does on that one? Does it also have USB-C for charging it?
It has USB-C. It has a small, tiny OLED display.
Oh, that's nice.
It has an app, but the display shows you the volume. It shows you the battery life. But just in 3 points, but you have it on your phone anyways. And then you can kind of switch the filters, you can change the gain, so a few little things, but everything bigger you can also do just in the app. But otherwise, pretty nice.
There's Vasquez brings up a good question. It's like, when you put your headphones on that, did the microphone work? And I will say on mine they work. Like the microphone and that thing works.
Once disconnects the microphone on the device is active, I think, because the odd thing is that when I run this or this and I get a call, I have to speak into those, which I usually have clipped on the belt. So then I have to take it off so I can talk into it. But on this one, since it doesn't have a microphone, it doesn't recognize it anyway. So it's just for sound. So you hear it, but you still have to talk in your phone. And on this one, I think it's the same. I don't think this one has a mic either.
Well, so because on the KZ ES4s I have the version that has a microphone built into the cable, and so whenever I plug it into that DAC, the DAC's microphone takes over.
Yeah, that's right. Because the one thing that I'm not sure why, but I'm disappointed in that when you have a headphone that has a microphone and the remote, why the remote doesn't work anymore. So I don't know if they could do that, because, for example, if I have this and I have a headphone that has let's say it this way. This one doesn't have media controls, but I would like to just use the controls that I have on the device. I can't. So I don't know if they could just do that, because it would be so helpful. Because the FiiO has media controls, so I can push on that. But I would like to wish to use the remote if I could, but I've not ever seen that. I'm not quite sure if that's technically not impossible or not possible, or they don't want to integrate it for some weird reason. I don't know.
How would you say that DAC compares to, in terms of driving high impedance cans? How would you say that compares to something like an LG DAC?
This one, yeah, I would say so. Supposedly, the BTR5 has to have more power than the small one. I'm not seeing that. For mine, it's still more louder. But this one has an option where you can just push the charge twice, so it doubles the power. Not quite, but you have a little bit more. But in balanced mode, so in one mode or the other, I'm not quite sure if it's the 3.5 or the balanced mode, this one has more power. But they are very comparable. But I would say I definitely prefer this over any phone that has a great headphone jack, just because it's a standalone device and I can use the high-end device to control the music. Because that's why I don't really recommend anyone really getting an MP3 player anymore, because those are usually small and sluggish. And yeah, sure, you have the internal connection with the headphone jack, so you have the most direct connection. So because these are not only, but usually just for Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is not as good as a cable, but portable, it's just as good. Even though this one has optical and everything else.
Right. Well, it's like, I'm kind of one where, I don't know, it's like I like the idea, like, because I use that DAC for my work. like when I was in the office. I'd use it and I'd have it on my neck, and then I'd have it paired to my computer, and then I just go, or I'd have it plugged in through USB-C is usually what I do for my Surface Book, and just use that because where the headphone jack is located on the Surface Book is terrible, and I also just get better audio quality out of the DAC. I find so, but yeah.
That's because FiiO already has a Bluetooth neckband for a while where you can actually use different headphones on it because it uses their plug. It works.
Okay. Man, that's crazy. Yeah, it's so cool. Oh man. But yeah, I think that's all I've got at the moment right now. It's just I think we've covered the whole gambit of topics this stream. So but awesome.
How are things actually in your neck of the what is it called?
My neck of the woods?
Neck of the woods.
Yeah, neck of the woods. Yeah,
so
it's going pretty okay here. Like my sorry, go ahead.
No, because here at the moment, besides the people wearing masks, everything else feels pretty normal, I have to say.
We have about 50% of people wearing masks, but Missouri is awesome. Yeah, yes, that's right, Sam. Missouri is awesome, except it's hot as balls right now. It's so humid. But yeah, like we've got about like we got about 50% of people wearing masks.
Aren't they enforced?
No.
Because where we are, they are. I mean, in stores now. I mean, once I think it started on, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks ago. You had to have a mask if you are maybe in a store or something like that. And since then, I haven't seen anyone in a store without. Some people maybe have a kind of a scarf or they hold something up or so, but barely anyone these days.
There's there's just not a culture of enforcing that sort of thing here, and so shoot, we had a guy who they tagged on Facebook who was going downtown in Columbia, Missouri, which is a college town, and he was yelling at people who were wearing masks because they were wearing masks. Because we're like in Missouri, we're kind of in this weird half and half of like super left and super right leaning. And so it's like, we get a variety. We've had people protesting for like the protests that have been going on. Then before that, we had the people protesting about the fact that the city was locked down and they want to open it up like normal. There was a here in town, there was a daycare. A daycare group in town where they were suing the city because of the restrictions. And then it turns out after their lawsuit got thrown out, they had a case of COVID in one of their businesses. And Sam's right. It shouldn't be political, but it's just it's becoming political here.
Yeah, because I've seen a picture today in Berlin of the Alexanderplatz place. And I'm not quite sure if they were demonstrating or whatever it was, but the complete place was filled with people. And then someone says, yeah, thanks to the second wave of COVID. But I thought, why are so many people so close together? I'm not quite sure what the reason was, if it was to protest, but I don't think that here anyone would protest, at least in that kind of size, because of Black Lives Matter, because that's not really a thing here. But it was odd. I didn't really know why.
Well, and I mean, just of the nature of these types of protests, that people are not following social distancing in the protests. That's something we're going to see. I don't know. Like I guess unexpectedly, the protests are the real test to see whether or not the second wave is going to hit, because you got all these people in such close proximity to each other. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to do what I can to protect myself and everyone else. I'm still using hand sanitizer, washing my hands. I ran out of gloves and I can't find any gloves right now.
I wash my hands. I mean, I washed my hands already pretty often before, but now I'm getting a little bit crazy because I wash them, but not even thinking about much. The moment I touch something odd, maybe if it's just a box where it was a little bit dusty or so, I wash it, which I didn't do before. And I don't think that's really a concern of mine, but it's just that I do it by now. Not because of the virus.
Yeah, it's I mean,
It became
we'll
a habit.
see. Well, and I mean, and what was it next week? We're supposed to find
like I said, I always did. I watched them a lot, but not in that frequent. So I guess the habit just got a little bit way more pushed, but super boosted. But it's fine. I mean, watching them too often, because I also listened to a podcast and the guy said I'm afraid that my hands will kind of completely get down to the bones because I wash my head so often. And I thought there's nothing kind of out of the ordinary of washing your hands. Soap won't break them down or something like that.
right. Yeah. It's, I mean, I will say I'm going to be washing my hands and being extra sanitation minded when I go to grocery stores and gas stations from now going forward, even after the pandemic's over. Just because those are good practices to have anyway.
That's actually one thing that I think was a little bit half-assed in our way, because there were some stores at the beginning when this whole thing started where they said you need a shopping cart. I don't know why exactly, maybe because so you keep a little bit more distance to people, but everyone who goes into a store needs a shopping cart. And on some shops, they had like a guy standing there who kind of cleans it up and maybe gives you some hand sanitizer and so on. And that kept for like a week or two. And since then, it's already gone, because, I mean, they kind of wanted to save the money for this guy, because in one store that wasn't really crowded much, there was this guy sitting the whole time just in front of the store to like every maybe 10-15 minutes to clean up the cart. And I don't know, that I mean, if they shouldn't have even ever introduced it or stick with it.
Right. Yeah, it's like sticking with it's just going to be good in the long run anyway, just because best practices, So
I mean, when I was in the US, in Kroger's, for example, there was at the store always like a cleaning station where you could clean the cart, and you have these hand shoes. No, it's not hand shoes. What is it called?
And like the sanitizer.
No, gloves. Yeah,
gloves. Gloves.
Completely mixed that word. And they had that already 2 years, so it was just a normal thing. And when I saw it the first time, I thought it's actually not a bad idea, because so many people touch that card. There are so many bacteria on it. It's definitely a smart thing to clean that up beforehand. But I never, before that, ever thought about that before I saw that. And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah. There's, I mean, yeah, I've been going and trying to find gloves, and gloves are still kind of hard to find here. So, but
I never wear gloves, so I don't really care about that so much.
Well, it's fine. Like I do have hand sanitizer now that like I have in my car for if I go grocery shopping, or if I
don't have
gas. So,
yeah.
Oh, Aldi had hand sanitizer yesterday. Those magnificent bastards. So, yeah. Good for them. Well, hell yeah. Well, awesome. Well, hey, I think at this point, this is probably about as good a time to end as any. We've been going for about 2.5 hours. Very strong. And now I've gotta go and take care of some business. Okay, fine. I gotta use the restroom. but yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for hopping. I wanted to thank Sam, Day, Vasicos, Matt for coming in, and everyone. Like, this has just been Q3 Becker. Like, seriously, this is, you guys are the reason why we do this. It's so much damn fun, and we just wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, and it wouldn't be nearly as fun without y'all.
Well, almost tripped me. He said it was a fun Saturday morning, and I thought, wait, what? It's Sunday evening.
Yeah.
I know there is a time difference, but I don't think it's that big. Okay, cool.
Oh, man. But yeah, well, awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys, and you guys have a kick-ass rest of your day. I'll catch you guys later.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.